The divine sword is invincible. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 776 Chaos King Godhead. After surviving the divine tribulation of origin, his divine body of origin was finally cultivated successfully. At this moment, in addition to the eternal divine body, the primordial divine body, and the primordial divine body, he had another divine body, the divine body of origin. And above Yangtze Ocean's divine sea, light surged, and a dark and huge godhead began to condense. Generally speaking, the best godhead is 1 mile in size. Even the divine godhead is only 10 miles in size. And Yangtze Ocean's dark godhead is as huge as the sun. Yangtze Ocean's 2 divine golden pills are big enough, but compared with his dark godhead, the 2 divine golden pills are just small birds. Just after Yangtze Ocean's dark godhead condensed, light surged again above his divine sea. This time, a bright and equally huge godhead condensed out. This bright godhead, like his dark godhead, is as huge as the sun. 2 godheads, one black and one bright, floated above Yangtze Ocean's divine sea. In the past, Yangtze Ocean's Hunio and Destiny and Hangmeng Holy Fruit were separated, but at this moment, the 15 Hunio and Destiny and 15 Hangmeng Holy Fruits were like the Hunio Galaxy and the Hangmeng Stars, tightly surrounding the 2 sun-like godheads. Uncle Ding looked at the black and white godheads above Yangtze Ocean's Sea of Gods, but he stared with his eyes wide open, full of horror. Could this be? Even he was not sure what level Yangtze Ocean's 2 godheads had reached. It was precisely because he was not sure that he was even more shocked. Not to mention Uncle Ding, even Yangtze Ocean was shocked and taken aback. He was not very surprised to condense 2 godheads. After all, he had condensed 2 golden pills before, but he did not expect that his godhead would be so big. The God-grade godhead is 10 miles in radius, so how many times larger than the God-grade godhead is his godhead? Although he was not sure what kind of godhead his 2 godheads were, he could be sure that they were at least above the chaos level. Yangtze Ocean took a deep breath, trying to suppress the excitement in his heart, and asked, Master Ding, in your opinion, what are my 2 godheads? The King of Chaos. Master Ding said, his voice trembling. There was no way not to tremble. It had seen the godheads of the most powerful people in the ancient times, and even the most powerful ones were not so big. Therefore, it judged that Yangtze Ocean's 2 godheads were definitely the King of Chaos. It didn't know which 2 kinds of King of Chaos they were, because it was also the first time it saw the King of Chaos. King of Chaos. Hearing Master Ding's certainty, Yangtze Ocean's heart trembled. Your godhead is simply against the sky. Master Ding couldn't help being excited. It's really against the sky. Once your godhead comes out, who can stop it? Such a huge King of Chaos godhead, I'm afraid even a continent can't bear it. At this time, a group of ancestors from the Temple of Light in the distance approached. Your Majesty, are you okay? An ancestor of the Temple of Light asked carefully. I'm fine. Yangtze Ocean swallowed a mouthful of Hunio and Heavenly Tribulation Thunder water, and looked at the other party. Do you hope that I'm in trouble? The ancestor of the Temple of Light was so scared that he prostrated himself on the ground, shaking his head repeatedly, and saying that his subordinates dared not. The other ancestors of the Temple of Light also knelt on the ground. Okay, everyone get up. Yangtze Ocean asked everyone to get up, and then passed the order down, asking the entire bright continent to help him collect the Sand of Time, Hunio and Heavenly Tribulation Thunder Water, Hangmeng Key and Origin Key. Everyone responded respectfully and then retreated. Under the effects of the 14th level Eternal Divine Body and Hunio and Heavenly Tribulation Thunder Water, Yangtze Ocean's injuries soon recovered completely. After recovery, he continued to refine the Hangmeng Key he had obtained earlier. After breaking through the realm of the gods, his speed of refining the Hangmeng Key accelerated again. In less than half a year, he had refined all 3000 Hangmeng Key, and his strength also broke through from the early stage of the first level of the gods to the late stage of the first level of the gods. In half a year, he broke through from the early stage of the first level of the gods to the late stage of the first level of the gods. This speed is shocking. You have to know that others may not be able to do it, even if they practice for hundreds or even thousands of years. However, Yang Xiaoshan was a little distressed. After practicing for half a year, he found that the energy that his two Chaos King godheads needed to devour was too terrifying. 3000 Hang Menki could only allow him to ascend to the late stage of the first level of the heavenly god. If it were another heavenly god of the first level, 3000 Hang Menki would probably be able to ascend to the late stage of the second level of the heavenly god. The energy required for each small realm of his two Chaos King godheads was so terrifying. How many natural materials and treasures did he have to swallow to ascend to the 10th level of the heavenly god? I'm afraid that, even if he plundered the entire martial spirit world, it would not be enough to support him to break through to the 10th level of the heavenly god. This is the price. Uncle Ding said, the Chaos King godhead is against the sky, but it is thousands of times more difficult to upgrade than other godheads. Yang Xiaoshan nodded and came out of the palace. At this time, the ancestors of the Temple of Light sent all the sand of time they had collected in the past 6 months to Yang Xiaoshan. However, except for the sand of time, the other Hunyuan Heavenly Tribulation Thunderwater, Hang Menki and Origin Key were not found. Yang Xiaoshan was quite helpless, but he also knew that these 3 things were hard to find. Afterwards, with everyone seeing him off, Yang Xiaoshan left the Palace of Light and began to return to Zhongshan continent. Before leaving, Yang Xiaoshan selected a certain ancestor to take charge of the Palace of Light and help him manage the Bright continent when he was not there. After Yang Xiaoshan returned to Zhongshan continent, he learned that Kishan Medicine God was in the Heavenly Court and immediately came to the Heavenly Court to visit Kishan Medicine God and Taishi Xiandi. After Taishi Xiandi and Kishan Medicine God returned, the forces of all parties in Zhongshan continent gradually stabilized these days, especially the Heavenly Court, which became lively and strong again under the drastic measures of Taishi Xiandi. Knowing that Yang Xiaoshan was coming, Taishi Xiandi and Kishan Medicine God both came out to greet him. Yang Xiaoshan walked into the Heavenly Palace and said with a smile, I have been in Zhongshan continent for so long, but this is my first time stepping into the Heavenly Palace. Taishi Xiandi and Kishan Xiaoshan looked at each other and smiled. Taishi Xiandi said with a smile, maybe you will step into the Heavenly Palace every day in the future. Yang Xiaoshan was stunned. Step into the Heavenly Palace every day. Taishi Xiandi smiled and said, in the battle of conferred gods, Yang Xiaoya won the first place and is the young emperor of my heavenly court. From now on, you can enter the Heavenly Palace every day. Then he said, however, you are now the Lord of Darkness and the Lord of Light. It is no longer appropriate for you to be the young emperor of my heavenly court. I have thought about it carefully, and I plan to give the position of heavenly emperor to you, and you will be in charge of heaven in the future. Yang Xiaoshan was stunned, then shook his hands and said, Senior Taishi, this is not possible. I'm now the Lord of the Dark Continent and the Lord of the Light Continent, and can no longer be in charge of the Zhongshan Heavenly Court. However, Taishi Xiandi shook his head and said, no one stipulates that you cannot be in charge of the 3 continents at the same time. Yang Xiaoshan smiled bitterly. It is true that no one stipulated that he could not be in charge of the 3 continents at the same time, but the key is that he has no time to manage heaven. Chapter 777, Squeeze into a room. The great emperor saw Yang Xiaoshan's concerns and said, if you are worried about not having time to manage, after you take charge of the heavenly court, you can let the major heavenly lords govern the states for you. Then he said earnestly, and if you become the heavenly emperor, you can use the resources of the heavenly court at will. I heard that you are looking for the sand of time and the key of origin recently. The heavenly court's treasury has a lot of sand of time and key of origin. Yang Xiaoshan was surprised to hear this and said, the heavenly court's treasury has key of origin? These days, he asked the Dark Continent and the Light Continent to help him find out about the key of origin, but there was no news. The heavenly court's treasury actually has it? Seeing Yang Xiaoshan's reaction, the great emperor smiled and said, yes, the heavenly court's treasury has key of origin. Then he said, not only is there key of origin, but there is also Hunyuan Heavenly Tribulation Thunderwater. But there is not much Hunyuan Heavenly Tribulation Thunderwater. As for how much, he did not say. If Yang Xiaoyao can take charge of the heavenly court, the Wuhan world will surely become more powerful. Kishin medicine god also smiled. After weighing the pros and cons, Yang Xiaoshan nodded and agreed to the Taishi Xiandi. As the Taishi Xiandi said, if he didn't have time to manage the heavenly court, he could let the major Xianjins govern the heavenly court for him, just like he had people governing the demon god temple and the light god temple now. With the resources of the heavenly court, he could practice faster. The Taishi Xiandi was very happy to see Yang Xiaoshan agreed, and said with a smile, okay, then I will announce this to the world now, and we will hold the ascension ceremony in 1 year. How about it? Okay. Yang Xiaoshan nodded. He knew that the ascension ceremony of the new emperor of the heavenly court would need to be held, and the strong men from all continents would come to watch the ceremony. Immediately, the Taishi Xiandi drafted an edict and announced to the world that Yang Xiaoshan would be the next heavenly emperor of the heavenly court, and he would ascend to the throne in 1 year, and his imperial title would be Hongmeng. That is, Hongmeng Xiandi. As soon as the news came out, Zhongshan continent and all the continents were shocked. Hongmeng sword god controls the heavenly court, so he will become the master of the 3 continents. He controls the 3 continents at the same time, the first person in the history. The strong men from all sides were excited, and the dark continent and the light continent were celebrating. Zhao Ji, the head of the Zhao family, and He Jian, the master of the Temple of Destiny, were all panicked when they learned that Yang Xiaoshan would control the heavenly court. They had dealt with Yang Xiaoshan before, and Yang Xiaoshan's control of the heavenly court was undoubtedly a disaster for them. Sure enough, not long after Zhao Ji and He Jian were worried, the heavy army of the heavenly court surrounded the Zhao family's headquarters and the Temple of Destiny. Looking at the endless heavenly court army, Zhao Ji and He Jian both looked at Hen. After dealing with the Zhao family in the Temple of Destiny, Yang Xiaoshan entered the galaxy space of the Forest of Destiny and subdued the galaxy beast in the deepest part of the galaxy space. This galaxy beast was born by condensing the power of stars and time, which was beneficial to his eternal divine body cultivation and other cultivation methods. After taming the giant beast of the galaxy, Yang Xiaoshan immediately set off and returned to Kangshen continent with Kui and Iu. 1 year later, it would be the day when he ascended to the throne. Ascending to the throne was the most important thing in his life, and naturally his family could not be left out. He wanted his family to participate in his ascension ceremony. I wonder what realm the girl, Kingsun, Wanning and others have reached in their cultivation now. Yang Xiaoshan stood at the bow of the spaceship, looking towards the direction of Kangshen continent. This time he had been away from Kangshen continent for the longest time, more than 20 years. The Abyss spaceship kept flying to Kangshen continent. In the residence of the gods, Yang Linga, Kingsun, Wanning and others were practicing swords. When they practiced the swordsmanship that Yang Xiaoshan had passed on to them, Kingsun suddenly stopped, looked at the distant sky, and was stunned. Sister-in-law, are you thinking about your elder brother again? Yang Linga saw Kingsun's appearance. How could she not know what Kingsun's sister was thinking? And said. Kingsun hesitated for a moment and said, Linga, Sister Ning, how about we go to Zhongshan continent to find brother Xiaoshan? Yang Linga was startled. Go to Zhongshan continent to find my elder brother? Okay, let's go to Zhongshan continent to find Xiaoshan. Wanning agreed. At this moment, suddenly, Long Kingsun looked at the distant sky with his eyes widened. Yang Linga and Wanning noticed that Long Kingsun was different and couldn't help but follow Long Kingsun's gaze, only to see a huge spaceship flying in the distant sky. On the bow of the spaceship stood a figure in a blue shirt. Seeing this figure in a blue shirt, Yang Linga and Wanning were overjoyed, and Long Kingsun's beautiful eyes were full of excitement. Brother Xiaoshan. The person who came back was Yang Xiaoshan. They kept speeding all the way and finally returned to the mansion of the gods in Kangshan continent. Bathed in the sun, Yang Xiaoshan was covered with a layer of gold, and his robes rustled in the wind. The young master is back. Excited shouts rang out in the mansion of the gods. Everyone in the mansion rushed out, all with excited faces. Yang Xiaoshan looked at this familiar scene. His heart warmed. He quickened his pace, and in the blink of an eye he landed in front of everyone. Big brother. Yang Ling rushed over impatiently, shouting in surprise and excitement. That shout was so loud, as if she was afraid that others would not know that her big brother had returned. Long Qingxuan and Wanning also ran over excitedly. Brother Xiaoshan, Yang Chao, Huang Ying, Xiaojin, Luoqing, Wu Leo and others all surrounded him. Suddenly, Yang Xiaoshan was surrounded by the crowd. The news of Yang Xiaoshan's return spread quickly, and Kang Xiang and all the masters of Kangshen Mansion were excited and came to pay their respects. That night, Yang Linger asked Yang Xiaoshan, "Big brother, you won't leave this time, right?" Long Qingxuan, Wanning, everyone looked at Yang Xiaoshan. This was the most concerned issue for everyone. Everyone looked forward to Yang Xiaoshan's return, but every time it didn't last long. Yang Xiaoshan left again, and everyone had to look forward to it again. Yang Xiaoshan said, "I will leave in a few days. After all, he will go back to hold the ascension ceremony." When everyone heard this, their faces suddenly became gloomy. "However, everyone can go to Zongshan continent with me then," Yang Xiaoshan said with a smile. Everyone felt happy. Yang Linger jumped up happily. "Brother, do you mean that all of us can go to Zongshan continent with you?" She was afraid that Yang Xiaoshan would not let her go. Yang Xiaoshan smiled and said, "Well, everyone will go together. Xiaojin, Luoqing, Wu Leo, everyone who wants to go, can go." Everyone cheered, and Xiaojin twisted his butt and jumped for joy. "Brother, have you bought a mansion in Zongshan continent? Will it be enough for so many of us to live there?" Yang Linger then smiled and said, "If it's not enough, you and the two sisters-in-law will squeeze into one room." Long Qingxuan and Wanning blushed immediately. Squeeze into one room? That would be. Yang Xiaoshan's forehead was covered with black lines. He was speechless and smiled. "It's big enough for us to live in. It's bigger than the palaces of the gods. When he becomes the emperor, the whole heaven will be ours. There are so many palaces of the gods. If we live in a different palace every day, we won't be able to live in all of them even after hundreds of years." Chapter 778, participating in the new emperor's enthronement ceremony. Yang Linger heard that the mansion in Zongshan continent was bigger than the mansion of the gods, and couldn't help but be curious. "Brother, how many palaces are there in your mansion in Zongshan continent? How many palaces?" This puzzled Yang Xiaoshan. After all, he really didn't know how many palaces there were in the heavenly court. He only knew that he could not see them all at a glance. "I don't know how many there are. Anyway, it's bigger than the mansion of the gods. You will know when you go there," Yang Xiaoshan said with a smile. Since he still had some days to ascend to the throne, Yang Xiaoshan was not in a hurry to return to Zongshan continent. In the following days, he stayed in the mansion of the gods to chat with his family, occasionally went out with Long Qingxuan and Wanning, and grilled meat outside at night to show some affection. Yang Linger also rarely followed, so that Yang Xiaoshan, the eldest brother, hugged the two sisters-in-law and flirted outside. Yang Xiaoshan hugged the two women and galloped around the world, admiring the endless scenery of Kangshan continent. Yang Xiaoshan also accompanied Long Qingxuan back to the capital of the Dragon Emperor and the Beihua Divine Sect. Yang Xiaoshan also went back to the True Dragon Sect to have a look. Upon learning that Yang Xiaoshan had come, the True Dragon Sect's ancestors, Tyrannosaurus Rex, and the True Dragon Sect's leader were all very excited, and led all the True Dragon Sect's disciples to kneel down and welcome Yang Xiaoshan. "We welcome His Majesty." The voice resounded throughout the True Dragon Sect's mountain range. Yang Xiaoshan looked at the kneeling True Dragon Sect's ancestor Li Zhenqing and felt emotional. Back then, when he was still the son of the True Dragon Sect, Li Zhenqing asked him to drink 7 bowls of Dragon Zhi soup to replenish his body, and he drank so much that he wanted to pee. Yang Xiaoshan stepped forward and helped Li Zhenqing and the others up, and said with a smile, "I just passed by and came back to see how the True Dragon Sect is developing now." Li Zhenqing and the others were flattered to be helped up by Yang Xiaoshan. You know, Yang Xiaoshan is now the Lord of Kangshen, the supreme existence of Kangshen continent. After being helped up, Li Zhenqing excitedly told Yang Xiaoshan about the development and current situation of the True Dragon Sect over the years. Back then, after Yang Ocean destroyed several supersects of the Tatian sect, the True Dragon Divine sect has developed rapidly in recent years, and its strength has surpassed that of the Tatian sect. Yang Ocean nodded, and then gave Li Zhenking and others a large number of heavenly grade divine elixirs, which made Li Zhenking and others speechless with excitement. Li Zhenking and others have always kept the Tangshan Peak where Yang Ocean lived and practiced. Yang Ocean and the two women stayed in Tangshan Peak for one night and left the next day in the respectful and admiring eyes of the people of the True Dragon Divine sect. After leaving, Yang Ocean and the two women went to the Zangshan Academy, came to the Eye of the Prehistoric Wuji Sword Formation, and then opened the things guarded by the Prehistoric Wuji Sword Formation. Over the years, he has been curious about what the Prehistoric Wuji Sword Formation of the Kangshan continent guards. Now, he knows that the Prehistoric Wuji Sword Formation guards a cave left by a Supreme Sword Master from the prehistoric period. This Supreme Sword Master is called Tai Sword Master. Tai Sword Master, Uncle Dingside, one of the 10 great sword masters in the prehistoric world, but unfortunately, he died an untimely death. Yang Ocean was puzzled. Uncle Ding shook his head and said nothing. In Tai Sword Master's cave, Yang Ocean found a Tai Divine Pill. This Tai Divine Pill was made from many rare divine medicines in the prehistoric world. These divine medicines are no longer available. One pill can equal Yang Ocean's 10 years of hard practice. However, Yang Ocean was not in a hurry to swallow it and practice, but put it away first. In Tai Sword Master's cave, there was also a Tai Sword Classic and a secret book about the formation of the prehistoric Wuji Sword Formation. Yang Ocean put them all away and read and study them later. After leaving Tai Cave, Yang Ocean and the two girls traveled all the way back to the mansion of the gods. Seeing that the time was almost up, Yang Ocean asked everyone to prepare and set off for Zangshan continent in 2 days. 2 days later, Yang Ocean looked at the piles of lollipops bought by Yang Linger and Xiaojin and was really speechless. Girl, why did you buy so many lollipops? They are also sold in Zangshan continent. Yang Ocean said. Yang Linger said, these lollipops have the taste of my hometown. The taste of my hometown? Yang Ocean was silent and then asked Yang Chao and Huang Ying, father, mother, do you want to go back to Shenhe country to have a look? Huang Ying smiled and said, a few days ago, your father and I went back to Yangjiazhuang in Shenhe country. Yang Chao nodded. Yang Ocean sighed when Yangjiazhuang was mentioned. After a while, the Abyss spaceship started and left the capital of the 10,000 gods. In the eyes of everyone, the mansion of the gods went farther and farther and finally became a tiny dot and disappeared from everyone's sight. The Abyss spaceship turned into a ray of light, flew quickly, and left Kangshan continent. This time, almost everyone in the mansion of the gods followed to Zangshan continent. Although there were many people, the Abyss spaceship was very large and did not seem crowded at all. Bing Iron Killin, Shine King Thunder Python, and Tonks and Demon Ape also followed. On the spaceship, Bing Iron Killin and Shine King Thunder Python looked at Yang Ocean, somewhat in a trance. 30 years ago, the child in the Red Moon Forest had grown to a height that they could not reach. They could not help but think of what Uncle Ding said back then. On the way, Yang Ocean swallowed the destiny fruit to practice and study the formation. When he was free, he practiced with the two women. Of course, with his current strength, even if he did not use divine power, sword intent, or anything else, he could beat the two women with just one finger. Yang Linger stood aside and kept shouting, come on, sister-in-law. However, no matter how much they cheered, the two women were still beaten by Yang Ocean's one finger and lay there. As everyone was looking forward to it, Zangshan continent finally arrived. Looking at the beautiful mountains and rivers of Zangshan continent on the spaceship, everyone looked curious. Zangshan continent is the first continent in the world of martial spirits. Whether it is cities or the aura of mountains and rivers, it is far from comparable to Kangshan continent. It gives people a truly magnificent feeling. Yang Ocean led everyone to fly all the way to the heaven. Brother, where are we going? Yang Linger asked. To Shiandi City. Yang Ocean said. Everyone was surprised. Could the mansion Yang Xiaoshan mentioned be in Xiandi City? On the way, everyone also learned about Zhongshan Continent. They knew that Xiandi City was the first city in Zhongshan Continent. Every inch of land was worth a lot of money. If the mansion was bigger than the mansion of the gods, how many spiritual stones would it cost? Soon, everyone arrived at Xiandi City. The spaceship continued to fly to the heavenly palace at the end of Xiandi City. Yang Linga, Long Qingxuan and others were puzzled. At this time, the day when Yang Xiaoshan ascended to the throne was approaching. Xiandi City was crowded with powerful people from all sides, and the heavenly palace was even busier. Brother, is there something big happening in Xiandi City? Yang Linga asked. Yang Xiaoshan hummed and said, in a few days, the ceremony of the new emperor of the heavenly palace will be held. So many powerful people from Zhongshan continent and surrounding continents will come to watch the ceremony. What are we doing now? Long Qingxuan asked curiously. I will take you to participate in the ceremony of the new emperor's enthronement. Yang Xiaoshan said. Chapter 779, Ascension to the Throne, Wedding. Attend the ceremony of the new emperor's coronation. Everyone was surprised. Brother, if you want to attend the ceremony of the new emperor's coronation, you need to be invited by the heavenly court, right? Yang Linga asked in confusion. We have not been invited by the heavenly court. Yang Xiaoshan smiled and said, I just invited you. You invited us? Yang Linga and others were stunned. At this time, the spaceship continued to fly to the heavenly court. However, it is forbidden for spaceships to fly over the Xiandi City. Strong men from all sides, no matter how powerful they are, dare not let spaceships fly over the Xiandi City. Therefore, in the entire Xiandi City, only Yang Xiaoshan's Abyss spaceship was flying. Yang Linga, Long Qingxuan, Wanning and others also noticed that only their spaceship was flying over the Xiandi City, and they were even more confused. When Long Qingxuan was about to ask a question, she suddenly saw that there were groups of heavenly court armies coming in front of her. Not only the heavenly court army, but also strong men from various sects on various continents, all rushing towards them. Moreover, many people had extremely strong auras, giving them a sense of vastness and invincibility. Seeing countless armies of heaven and countless powerful men from various sects rushing towards them, all the women were surprised and suspicious. Bingai and Killin, Shine King Thunder Python, Tonks and Demon Ape and others were even more solemn and ready for battle. The army of heaven and countless powerful men from various sects that rushed towards them suddenly stopped 100 feet away from the spaceship. We are here to see His Majesty the Hangmeng Emperor. First, the army of heaven all knelt on the ground. Then, the powerful men from various sects knelt down. We are here to see His Majesty the Hangmeng Emperor. Wave after wave of voices, resounding endlessly, resounding through the world, and soaring into the sky. Yang Linga, Long Qingxuan, Wanning, Yang Chao, Huang Ying and others stared at the army of heaven and the powerful men from various sects kneeling on the ground in front of them. In shock, everyone's eyes fell on Yang Xiaoshan. Hangmeng Emperor. Isn't Hangmeng Emperor the new emperor who is about to ascend the throne of heaven? Long Qingxuan's mind was buzzing. Could it be that brother Xiaoshan is him? Everyone, stand up. Yang Xiaoshan looked at the kneeling heavenly army and the powerful men, and waved his hand. With an extremely powerful force, he lifted everyone up. Everyone who was lifted up looked at Yang Xiaoshan with awe and enthusiasm. Thank you, Your Majesty. Although Yang Xiaoshan ascended the throne a few days later, to everyone, Yang Xiaoshan was already the heavenly emperor. I fainted. Brother, you are the new heavenly emperor of heaven, Hangmeng Emperor. Suddenly, Yang Linga patted Yang Xiaoshan's shoulder excitedly. Everyone almost fell down. All the heavenly army, all the powerful men from the dark continent and the light continent looked at Yang Linga with strange faces. With the current power of Hangmeng Emperor, it is estimated that only the sister of Hangmeng Emperor dares to pat his shoulder in this world. Yang Xiaoshan looked at the excited girl, smiled, and pointed to the heavenly palace in front of him. Girl, we will live there from now on. Yang Linga, Long Qingxuan, Yang Chao and others looked at the endless heavenly palace. At this time, everyone finally knew how big the mansion Yang Xiaoshan mentioned was. No wonder Yang Xiaoshan didn't know how many palaces there were. Brother, there are so many palaces. If you want to visit them, how many years will it take to visit them all? Yang Linga suddenly said. Everyone laughed. Then, under the welcome of the heavenly lords and gods in the heavenly palace, Yang Ocean and the Yang family all entered the heavenly palace. Yang Ocean was arranged to live in the heavenly emperor palace. Long Kingsun and Wanning were arranged to live in the empress palace. The palaces of Yang Linga, Yang Chao, Huang Ying and others were also next to Yang Ocean's heavenly emperor palace. At night, Yang Chao and Huang Ying lay on the god bed made of rare sacred wood in the palace, as if they were dreaming. Sister Ying, do you think I saved the Milky Way in my last life? Yang Chao said, looking at the dreamy palace that looked like stars. Huang Ying smiled and said, do you want me to punch you again? Yang Chao nodded. Huang Ying raised her pink fist and punched him. Are you really going to punch me? You've asked me to punch you so many times over the years, you deserve it. The next day, Yang Chao and Huang Ying brought Long Kingsun and Wanning to find Yang Ocean. Wedding. Yang Ocean was stunned when he learned about his parents' intentions. Long Kingsun and Wanning obviously didn't know that Yang Chao and Huang Ying brought them to see Yang Ocean to discuss marriage, and her pretty face blushed. Men should get married when they are old enough, and women should get married when they are old enough. Huang Ying smiled and said, you are not young anymore. Kingsun and Ninga have been waiting for you. You can't let them wait forever. Yang Ocean smiled bitterly. In fact, at his level, it is normal to get married, even if you are hundreds or thousands of years old. However, he also knew that the two women have been waiting for him all these years. He looked at the two girls. Kingsun, Ninga, what do you think? Long Kingsun and Wanning looked at each other, blushing, then lowered their heads and nodded slightly. I think it's better to do it on the day when Ocean ascends to the throne, so that we can have double happiness. Huang Ying said with a smile. The day when he ascends to the throne. Wouldn't that be a few days later? Yang Ocean opened his mouth, but didn't say anything in the end. Soon, the news of Yang Ocean's wedding on the day he ascended to the throne spread, and Xiandi City was boiling. A few days later, on the day when Yang Ocean ascended to the throne, all parties came to pay homage. Xiandi City and the heavenly court were decorated with lights and colors, a festive red. Under the gaze of the strong men from all continents, Yang Ocean walked towards the throne of the heavenly emperor step by step with 15 Hunyuan fates hanging on his head and 15 Hongmeng holy fruits hanging on his back. The invincible aura on Yang Ocean's body overwhelmed the heavens. Everyone dared not breathe. Finally, Yang Ocean walked to the throne of the emperor of heaven, and then sat on it. Suddenly, an invisible force from the heavenly court blessed Yang Ocean, and Yang Ocean burst out with the power of the Emperor of Heaven. We are here to see His Majesty the Hongmeng Emperor of Heaven. Your Majesty is invincible. Countless strong men knelt on the ground, excited and respectful. At this moment, Yang Ocean finally became the Emperor of Heaven. He is the 18th Emperor of Heaven, the Hongmeng Emperor of Heaven. He will also be the strongest Emperor of Heaven. Celebrate together. That night, Yang Ocean came to the Emperor of Heaven Palace, and saw that in the Emperor of Heaven Palace, two women in bright red festive robes were already sitting by the bed waiting for him. The bed was very big. Yang Ocean came to the two women, and lifted their hoods. Under the light, the two women were beautiful and charming, exuding a charming body fragrance. Yang Ocean breathed hard, and took off the two women's robes one by one. Chapter 780 Dual Chaos Divine Body. Not long after, the sound of cuckoos began to sound in the Xiandi Palace. Yang Ocean stayed in the Xiandi Palace for the next few days. Of course, in addition to sparring with the two women, Yang Ocean also worked hard to improve the two women's cultivation. Of course, every time they sparred, the two women were defeated miserably. Even if the two women joined forces, they were no match for Yang Ocean. A few days later, Yang Ocean and the two women left the Xiandi Palace. Facing Yang Linga's eyes, the two women were so embarrassed that they wanted to hide in the cracks. After leaving the Xiandi Palace, Yang Ocean went to the Xianting treasure house and found the Sand of Time, the origin key in the Hunyuan Heavenly Tribulation Thunderwater mentioned by the Taishi Xiandi. There were quite a few sands of time, but looking at the origin key in the Hunyuan Heavenly Tribulation Thunderwater in front of him, Yang Ocean was speechless. There were only 6 origin key, and there were even fewer Hunyuan Heavenly Tribulation Thunderwater, only 2 mouthfuls left. No wonder that Taishi Shiandi said that there were not many Hunio heavenly tribulation thunder waters before, but he didn't say how much. Yang Xiaoshan shook his head, then returned to the Heavenly Emperor Palace, and began to refine the Sand of Time and the Key of Origin. As for the 2 mouthfuls of Hunio heavenly tribulation thunder water, they were used to continue watering the chard tree roots. Last time at the Hangmen Gate, after all the Hunio heavenly tribulation thunder water he got was used to water the chard tree roots, the chard tree roots were almost revived. After watering 2 mouthfuls of Hunio heavenly tribulation thunder water, a small piece of the charred bark of the chard tree roots fell off again, but there was still a little bit of charred bark that did not fall off. After refining 6 Key of Origin, Yang Xiaoshan's origin body improved a little, but it was only a little bit. The biggest improvement was Yang Xiaoshan's eternal body. Over the years, Yang Xiaoshan had collected a lot of Sand of Time from the Dark Continent and the Light Continent. With the Sand of Time from the Heavenly Court Treasury, his eternal body finally broke through to the 15th level. It was also the first of his 4 great bodies to break through the 15th level. Not bad. One of the 4 great divine bodies has finally broken through the 15th level. Ding Yi's voice sounded. The 15th level of the eternal divine body is not the end. Yang Xiaoshan couldn't help but ask, Ding Yi, do you know what the highest level of the eternal divine body is? The highest? Ding Yi shook his head. No one knows what the highest level of the eternal divine body is, but when the Lord of Heaven and Earth left the martial soul world, the eternal divine body had been cultivated to the 17th level. 17th level. Yang Xiaoshan was surprised, and then asked, you mean, the Lord of Heaven and Earth is not dead yet? Of course not dead. Ding Yi said. Yang Xiaoshan was very surprised that the Lord of Heaven and Earth was not dead yet. Ding Yi said again, you condensed the godhead of the King of Chaos. When you break through the realm of the Lord of God, you will have to go through the Chaos Divine Tribulation. The ordinary Chaos Divine Tribulation is more than 10 times stronger than the Origin Divine Tribulation. Yours is the double Chaos King Godhead. The Chaos Divine Tribulation is definitely the most terrifying. Yang Xiaoshan was shocked. If you want to survive the Chaos Tribulation, you must cultivate the Eternal Divine Body to the 17th level. Not only the Eternal Divine Body, but also the other 3 Divine Bodies need to be cultivated to the 17th level. Grandpa Ding said, moreover, you must cultivate all 15 sword intentions into the sword realm. Only in this way can you have a 40% chance of successfully surviving the Chaos Tribulation. The 4 great divine bodies are all 17th level. The 15 sword intentions have cultivated the sword realm. Only 40%. Yang Xiaoshan's heart sank. The path of cultivation is to go against the will of heaven. The higher you go, the stronger the tribulation. Grandpa Ding said, since you want to take the strongest path, you must be prepared to face the strongest tribulation in the future. The strongest path. The strongest tribulation. Yang Xiaoshan's eyes were firm. However, if you condense a divine nature above the divine grade, as long as you successfully break through to the realm of the Lord of God, you will have a new divine body. Grandpa Ding said, if you successfully survive the Chaos Tribulation and become the Lord of God, you will have the 5th divine body, the Chaos Divine Body. The 5th divine body, the Chaos Divine Body. Yang Xiaoshan's eyes lit up. Yes, and it is very likely that it is a dual system Chaos Divine Body with both the power of darkness and light. Uncle Ding said this, unable to suppress his excitement. Chaos Divine Body is already hard to find in the world, let alone a dual system Chaos Divine Body. How powerful will Yang Xiaoshan be when all 5 divine bodies are out? Knowing that the 4 divine bodies need to be cultivated to the 17th level, Yang Xiaoshan asked the 3 continents to help him collect the power of time, the aura of Hangmen and the aura of origin. At the same time, he asked the people below to search for the whereabouts of the true demon ancestor. Now, he has 3 keys of darkness, and the only one left is the one on the true demon ancestor. He can open the cave treasure of the Lord of Darkness. With the cave treasure of the Lord of Darkness, he may be able to improve his strength. Afterwards, Yang Xiaoshan went to the extreme cold land. He remembered that senior Kishin Yaoshan had said that the extreme cold land had the 3rd rank Tai in divine fire. He has now broken through the heavenly god realm and possessed the 4 great divine fires. He can refine the 4 tribulations heavenly grade eternal god pill. If he subdues the Tei in divine fire, he can refine the 5 tribulations heavenly grade eternal god pill. If he has the 5 tribulations heavenly grade eternal god pill, then his cultivation can be improved again. However, after arriving at the extremely cold land, Yang Xiaoshan dug 3 feet into the ground, but still could not sense the existence of the Tei in divine fire, and finally returned empty-handed. Under Yang Xiaoshan's mobilization of the power of the 3 continents, the sands of time were continuously sent to him, but he never found the Hangmen key and the origin key. Yang Xiaoshan could only practice the eternal divine body and the Hunio and destiny divine body first. While practicing, he looked through the secret books and notes left by the Lord of Time, the Lord of Heaven and Earth, the fierce demon, his master Han Feng and others. Sometimes he would accompany the 2 women and their families to leave the Xiandi city, go out to travel and inquire about the news of other divine fires. With Yang Xiaoshan's efforts, he finally found the 5th ranked Kinglian divine fire and subdued it. Since then, Yang Xiaoshan has possessed the 5 great divine fires. After possessing the 5 great divine fires, Yang Xiaoshan refined the 5 tribulations heavenly grade eternal god pill. The destiny god tree devoured the 5 tribulations heavenly grade eternal god pill, and the destiny god fruit that grew out was much more potent than before. Therefore, it played a great role in Yang Xiaoshan's cultivation and the improvement of his Hunio and destiny god body. At the same time, Yang Xiaoshan went to Kunlun Divine Mountain to see if he could take it, but with his strength, he still couldn't take it. According to Master Ding, even the Lord of Heaven and Earth couldn't take Kunlun Divine Mountain back then. If he wanted to take Kunlun Divine Mountain, this great treasure, he had to at least surpass the Lord of Heaven and Earth back then, to have a glimmer of hope. In the blink of an eye, several years passed. With the help of the resources of the 3 continents, Yang Xiaoshan finally reached the peak of the late 1st level of the Heavenly God. However, after entering the Heavenly God realm, Yang Xiaoshan felt more and more that this world was shackled to him, like a giant dragon trapped in a shallow shoal. He needed a wider world and more and stronger resources. On this day, Jian Xianjun came to report to him that he had found the trace of the true demon ancestor. Ancient sword ruins? Yang Xiaoshan was very surprised to learn that the true demon ancestor had entered the ancient sword ruins, but then he thought of the mysterious space and trance at the end of the ancient sword ruins. Chapter 781 Divine Realm. The true demon ancestor could not have entered the ancient sword ruins for no reason. He was most likely heading for the mysterious space at the end of the sword ruins. The more Yang Xiaoshan thought about it, the more he felt that this was possible. Then, Yang Xiaoshan summoned all the heavenly lords and the Yang family. What, you want to enter the ancient sword ruins? Yang Chao and Huang Ying were stunned. Although they had only been in Zhongshan continent for a few years, they had heard about the ancient sword ruins, and knew the dangers of the ancient sword ruins. Yang Xiaoshan nodded, and then told everyone about the entrance to the space at the end of the sword ruins. When Long Qingxuan and Wanning learned that Yang Xiaoshan was going to enter the space at the end of the sword ruins, they were immediately horrified. What if you enter that mysterious space and can't come back? Yang Chao, Huang Ying and others all look worried. Yang Xiaoshan shook his head. With Master Ding here, I will be fine. But if you leave, what will happen to the heavenly court? Yang Chao said. With all the heavenly lords here, nothing will happen to the heavenly palace, and Senior Taishi and Senior Kishan are still here. Yang Xiaoshan said. Although the lifespan of Emperor Taishi is coming to an end, there are still hundreds of years left. In fact, after ascending to the throne, he has always wanted to enter the mysterious space at the end of Jiangsu. The disappearance of his master, Lord Hangfeng, and Emperor Han Huang are all related to that mysterious space. He was not strong enough before, and could not enter, but now he is strong enough, and can enter that mysterious space. Brother Xiaoshan, we sisters will go with you. Long Qingxuan bit her lip and said. Yang Xiaoshan shook his head. It's too dangerous. Then he said, don't worry, I have the 4 great divine bodies here, and I will definitely come back safely. Everyone knew that they could not be stubborn with Yang Xiaoshan, so they kept silent. The next day, after explaining a lot of things, Yang Xiaoshan flew away from the heavenly palace in the reluctance of everyone, and disappeared into the sky. This time, Yang Xiaoshan only brought Kinyu with him. It didn't take long for the 2 of them to arrive at the Tegu sword ruins. Then, Yang Xiaoshan unfolded his soul power, sensing the breath of the true demon ancestor remaining in the space, and followed it all the way to the end of the Tegu Sword ruins. When passing by the place where Terlan Xianzan and Mingai Sword Demon sat in meditation, Yang Xiaoshan bowed to their tombs, and then continued to follow the breath of the true demon ancestor with Kuiniu. Finally, they arrived at the end of the sword ruins. Back then, Yang Xiaoshan needed the protection of Ding Yi to reach the end of the sword ruins, but now, even without Ding Yi's protection, he can easily reach the end of the sword ruins. When they arrived at the demon palace of the ancestor of the ancient corpse demon clan at the end of the sword ruins, the breath of the true demon ancestor disappeared. It seems that the true demon ancestor, as he guessed, entered the entrance to that space. Looking at the closed demon palace gate, Yang Xiaoshan did not use the Huanquan divine art, but activated the 15th Hangmeng holy fruit, and directly punched the demon palace gate. Boom. The restrictions on the gate of the demon palace made a crackling sound, and the entire gate of the demon palace was directly blasted open. After entering the demon palace, Yang Xiaoshan activated the 17 heavenly emperor seals, bypassed the restrictions of the ancient corpse demon ancestor, and came to the deepest part of the demon palace. In the deepest part of the demon palace, there was indeed a huge space entrance. Feeling the amazing devouring power coming from the space entrance, Yang Xiaoshan said to Kinyu, "Senior Kinyu, how about you? I can go in." Kinyu weighed it and said, "Okay, then we go in now." After Yang Xiaoshan finished speaking, the 4 divine bodies were activated and flashed into the space channel. Seeing this, Kinyu also used all his strength to support the power of the Sea of Thunder, and followed Yang Xiaoshan into the space channel. Suddenly, a burst of amazing devouring power devoured Yang Xiaoshan and Kinyu, and flew forward continuously. Even Yang Xiaoshan could not control his body. After a long period of spinning, the devouring power suddenly disappeared, and Yang Xiaoshan and Kinyu's bodies became lighter, and fell from the sky. Yang Xiaoshan and Kinyu were not unfamiliar with this situation, and they tried their best to control their bodies. Finally, they stabilized their bodies before they fell to the ground. Yang Xiaoshan looked over and saw that they were now in a primeval forest. He flew up and looked over. The primeval forest was endless. The sky and the earth of this world were vast and boundless. Yang Xiaoshan was surprised to find that the spiritual energy of the heaven and earth here was much higher in quality than the spiritual energy of the heaven and earth in his original world. And the laws of heaven and earth were more solid. It felt like the world he was in before was just a small lake, while the world he was in now was a vast ocean. Where is this? Yang Xiaoshan was in doubt. It seems that the legend is true. Kinyu pondered. Legend? Yang Xiaoshan couldn't help but look at Kinyu. Legend. Before the prehistoric times, there were tens of millions of continents in the martial arts world. Kinyu said. Tens of millions of continents. Yang Xiaoshan was stunned. However, the martial arts world he was in before only had tens of thousands of continents. Later, there was a great war between the supreme beings of heaven and earth, and the entire Wuhan world was shattered and split into dozens of domains. Kuiniu said, the world we were in before was just one of the domains of the Wuhan world, called the Desolate Domain. The Desolate Domain is also the smallest domain among the dozens of domains, and it is also the domain with the weakest spiritual energy. Yang Xiaoshan was surprised and surprised. His previous world was just a part of the Wuhan world. I have said it before, the Wuhan world is much larger than what you see. Uncle Ding said, but I didn't expect that the space entrance at the end of the sword ruins is the space entrance of the God Realm. God Realm? Yang Xiaoshan read, that is to say, the world they came to now is the God Realm among the dozens of domains in the Wuhan world. Yes, this is the God Realm. Uncle Ding said, the God Realm is also one of the largest and most powerful domains in the Wuhan world. God Realm? Yang Xiaoshan looked at the world in front of him. It seems that Han Huang Xiandi and his master Han Feng Shenzhou have come to the God Realm. Since the God Realm is the largest and most powerful domain in the Wuhan world, there must be many strong people, right? Yang Xiaoshan thought to himself. The Divine Realm is indeed much stronger than your Wild Realm. Master Ding said, there are more and stronger evil geniuses. However, the competition is also stronger. The Divine Realm should have the origin key, right? Yang Xiaoshan asked. The Divine Realm definitely has the origin key, but even in the Divine Realm, the origin key is a rare treasure. Usually only some super sects have it. Master Ding said. Yang Xiaoshan nodded, and then he unfolded his soul power to sense the breath of the true demon ancestor. To his surprise, he really sensed the breath of the true demon ancestor. Let's go. Yang Xiaoshan and Kuiniu immediately broke through the air and continued to pursue the breath of the true demon ancestor, and then came to a city. The city in front of them was very large and very bustling, with strong men from various sects coming in an endless stream. Yang Xiaoshan and the others walked into the city. After entering the city, the breath of the true demon ancestor was looming. Yang Xiaoshan pursued it all the way and finally came to a large chamber of commerce. However, the name of this chamber of commerce surprised Yang Xiaoshan, Tongshan Chamber of Commerce. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 782 Sword Ancestor Hangfeng. Tongshan Chamber of Commerce. Yang Xiaoshan looked at the sign on the door of the Chamber of Commerce and read. Could this Chamber of Commerce be opened by his master? Yang Xiaoshan and Kuiniu walked into the Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce was very large, covering a large area, and the entire hall was built magnificently, with busy transactions. Yang Xiaoshan even saw a lot of rare divine medicines. Sir, I wonder what you need to buy? At this time, a young man from the Chamber of Commerce came over and asked Yang Xiaoshan with a smile. While Yang Xiaoshan was using his soul power to sense the existence of the true demon ancestor, he took out a list of materials for purchasing divine medicines and handed it to the other party. Excuse me, does your Chamber of Commerce have these divine medicines? This is a list of materials left by the Lord of Heaven and Earth for refining the Lord level divine pills. He couldn't find these divine medicines in his original wilderness, and he didn't know if there were any here. The young man from the Chamber of Commerce took Yang Xiaoshan's list of medicinal materials and was very surprised. Why, don't you have any? Yang Xiaoshan asked. Sir, we have these medicinal herbs in our Chamber of Commerce, but the quantity you need is a bit large, and one of the magic medicines has been sold out, so you need to wait for 2 days. The Chamber of Commerce guy said. Yang Xiaoshan was surprised. He didn't expect that the Tongshan Chamber of Commerce would have these magic medicines that he couldn't find, even if he asked the 3 continents to search for them. That's okay. I'll buy other magic medicines first. I'll come back in 2 days to get the magic medicine that's sold out. Yang Xiaoshan said. The Chamber of Commerce guy asked Yang Xiaoshan to wait in the rest area and then went to prepare the magic medicine. Soon, the other party brought hundreds of magic medicines that Yang Xiaoshan needed. Yang Xiaoshan checked them and found that they were all correct, and many of them were better than he required. But when paying the spirit stones, the Chamber of Commerce guy said, a total of 3,820 magic spirit stones. Magic spirit stones? Yang Xiaoshan was stunned, thinking he had heard wrong. The Chamber of Commerce guy was a little surprised to see Yang Xiaoshan's reaction, and smiled. Yes, sir, that's 3,820 divine spirit stones. Sacred spirit stones are not enough. Yang Xiaoshan asked. The Chamber of Commerce guy smiled and said, young master, you don't know that you need to pay divine spirit stones to buy divine medicines above the Lord of God's level. Sacred spirit stones can only be used to buy divine medicines of the heavenly god realm. Yang Xiaoshan sweated. Is there such a rule in the god realm? Although he has several divine spirit veins, it takes more than 3,000 divine spirit stones to buy medicinal materials once. If this goes on, I'm afraid it will be used up in a few years. Yang Xiaoshan suddenly felt that there were not enough spirit stones to spend. After Yang Xiaoshan paid the divine spirit stones, he asked the Chamber of Commerce guy, brother, can I ask you something? Who is the president of your Tongshan Chamber of Commerce? Our president? The Chamber of Commerce guy was stunned and smiled. The president of our Chamber of Commerce is Chen Dishan. This is not a secret, so he told the truth. Yang Xiaoshan was startled. Did he guess wrong? Wasn't this Tongshan Chamber of Commerce opened by his master? Our Tangshan Chamber of Commerce is a chamber of commerce under the Tangshan divine religion. The young man from the Chamber of Commerce said this. When he mentioned the Tangshan divine religion, he said with admiration, "I wish I could become a disciple of the Tangshan divine religion one day." Yang Xiaoshan was shocked and said with joy, "Tangshan divine religion." The young man from the Chamber of Commerce saw Yang Xiaoshan's joyful expression. Although he was puzzled, he didn't think much about it and smiled. "Yes. I wonder who the founder of the Tangshan divine religion is?" Yang Xiaoshan asked anxiously. "The founder of our Tangshan divine religion is very powerful. He is the sword ancestor Han Feng, one of the 10 supreme sword ancestors in our Kanglan continent." The young man from the Chamber of Commerce said with admiration. Sword ancestor Han Feng. Yang Xiaoshan couldn't suppress his excitement. He finally found his master. His master Han Feng was undoubtedly the person who had the greatest influence on him. If it weren't for the Tangshan divine sword and the ancient dragon nut left by his master Han Feng, he might have a different fate. Therefore, he has always been grateful and respectful to his master Han Feng. Later, Yang Xiaoshan learned from the Chamber of Commerce guy that his master Han Feng now has 3 registered disciples, and Chen Dishan, the general president of Tangshan Chamber of Commerce, is one of his master's 3 registered disciples, and one of the registered disciples is the current leader of Tangshan divine religion. Young master, you don't know that, as long as the disciples of our Chamber of Commerce perform well and have good talents, they will have the opportunity to pass the selection and become the outer disciples of Tangshan divine religion. The Chamber of Commerce guy became more and more excited and said happily, "One of my Chamber of Commerce disciples passed the selection in the previous batch and is now an outer disciple of Tangshan divine religion." Yang Xiaoshan nodded and smiled. After a while, Yang Xiaoshan came out of the Chamber of Commerce with a fluctuating mood. Although the Chamber of Commerce guy didn't know the strength of his master Han Feng, since his master Han Feng was one of the 10 great sword ancestors of Kanglan continent, his strength was definitely greater than that of the Divine Lord. And Tangshan divine religion is also one of the 10 great superpowers of Kanglan continent. Afterwards, Yang Xiaoshan rented a yard in the restaurant under the Tangshan Chamber of Commerce and lived there with Kinyo. He would go to the Tangshan Chamber of Commerce to get the magic medicine 2 days later. During these 2 days, he could learn about the situation of the Divine Realm and the Kanglan continent. After 2 days, Yang Xiaoshan had a preliminary understanding of the situation of the Divine Realm and the Kangshan continent through various channels. In the Divine Realm, the common spirit stones are generally holy and divine spirit stones. Moreover, the things here are more expensive than those in the wilderness realm he had before. Even the formation secrets are 2 or 3 times more expensive than those in the wilderness realm. An ordinary formation secret book costs tens of thousands of holy spirit stones, and this is still ordinary. However, the formations here are quite valuable. A level 10 top level divine formation can generally be sold for millions of holy spirit stones. If it is a dual system level 10 top level divine formation, the price will be even higher, exceeding 10 million. And a level 11 top level divine formation costs 100,000 divine spirit stones. If it is a dual system, the price will be even higher. So if he really doesn't have enough money in the future, he can set up an 11th level divine formation to sell. With his current cultivation, although he could not arrange a top level 11th level divine formation, he had no problem arranging an ordinary 11th level divine formation. 2 days later, Yang Xiaoshan returned the rent and came to Tangshan Chamber of Commerce with Kinyo again. After getting the divine medicine today, he planned to go to the headquarters of Tangshan Divine Sect to see if he could meet his master Han Feng. When he arrived at the Chamber of Commerce, he saw that it was extremely lively, even more lively than the previous 2 days, and many powerful people from the sects were surrounding a young man. The young man was wearing a purple and gold brocade robe and had an extraordinary aura. Yang Xiaoshan summoned the young man from the Chamber of Commerce, paid the money, got the divine medicine, and then asked, "Who is that young man?" The young man from the Chamber of Commerce said with admiration, "He is the 10 swordsman." The 10 swordsman? Yang Xiaoshan was puzzled. The young man from the Chamber of Commerce explained, "Young Master Shijian is the most gifted genius of the younger generation in our South China Sea. Not only does he have an unparalleled talent in the way of the sword, but he also has an unparalleled talent in the way of formations. Young Master Shijian has been practicing for less than 1,000 years, but he has already reached the realm of a celestial god. He has condensed a supreme godhood, and has also cultivated 10 kinds of extremely powerful sword intents. Wow, 10 kinds of extremely powerful sword intents. It is simply unprecedented. That's why he is called Young Master Shijian. I heard that he will take part in the assessment for inner disciples of our Tangshan divine sect in a few days. With his talent, he will definitely pass the assessment for inner disciples of the Tangshan divine sect. Many people say that he may even be noticed by the sect master and accepted as his personal disciple. I'm driving back to my hometown in the evening to celebrate the holiday with my parents, so I won't be able to update the 4th post. I may be a little busy during the National Day holiday these days, so I'll update at least 3 times. Chapter 783 Tangshan sect arrives. 10 kinds of the strongest sword intent. Yang Xiaoshan was surprised. You know, he has never met a genius who has cultivated the strongest sword intent along the way, but this Master Shijian has not only cultivated the strongest sword intent, but also cultivated 10 kinds of the strongest sword intent. It is amazing. It can be seen that his talent in swordsmanship is very high. Seeing Yang Xiaoshan's surprise, the young man from the Chamber of Commerce smiled and said, "How about it? You are surprised, and Master Shijian has cultivated all 10 kinds of the strongest sword intent to the great success realm. He is not only the most talented genius of the younger generation in our South China Sea, but also one of the most talented geniuses of the younger generation in our Kanglan continent. His talent in swordsmanship has been praised by many supreme sword gods. Also, his talent in formation is not inferior to his talent in swordsmanship. I heard that he learned all 1296 forbidden runes in half a year. Although he is only at the peak of the late 1st level of the heavenly god realm, he can already arrange a 10th level intermediate divine formation." The young man from the Chamber of Commerce became more and more excited. Yang Xiaoshan nodded. This Master Shijian has learned all 1296 forbidden runes in half a year, and he can set up a level 10 intermediate divine formation at the 1st level of the heavenly god. His talent in formation is indeed very strong. Of course, he learned all 1296 forbidden runes in one day. Now he has begun to study the 5-element level 10 top divine formation. The young man from the Chamber of Commerce smiled at Yang Xiaoshan and said, "If you want to ask Master Shijian for advice on swordsmanship and formation, I can introduce you. Master Shijian often comes to the Chamber of Commerce to buy materials for setting up formations, so he is familiar with me." Yang Xiaoshan smiled and said, "No, thank you." Then he and Kinyu left the Chamber of Commerce. "Friend Yang, shall we go to the headquarters of Tangshan Divine Religion now?" Kinyu said after leaving the Chamber of Commerce. "Yes, let's go to the headquarters of Tangshan Divine Religion," Yang Xiaoshan said. These days, he has been searching for the true demon ancestor, but he has never been able to sense the breath of the true demon ancestor. The true demon ancestor should have left this city. Therefore, there is no need for them to stay in this city any longer. However, as long as the true demon ancestor is still in the Kanglan continent, he will be able to find him out sooner or later. He has learned that outside the Kanglan continent, it is extremely dangerous. Only the realm of the Lord of God can leave the Kanglan continent, so the true demon ancestor will not leave the Kanglan continent before breaking through the Lord of God. Even if the true demon ancestor has inherited the Lord of Time, it is not so easy to break through the Lord of God. After leaving the city, Yang Xiaoshan immediately urged the spaceship to fly to the headquarters of the Tangshan Divine Religion. The Kanglan continent is extremely vast, about 100 times the size of the Tangshan continent. Fortunately, the headquarters of the Tangshan Divine Religion is in the South China Sea, not very far away. Driven by the Divine Spirit Stone, the Abyss spaceship quickly approached the headquarters of the Tangshan Divine Religion. On the way, Yang Xiaoshan swallowed the Destiny Divine Fruit to practice, striving to practice the Hunyo and Destiny Divine Body to the 15th level as soon as possible. At the same time, he comprehended the Sword Way, striving to practice all 15 sword intentions into the sword field as soon as possible. However, it is too difficult to cultivate the sword intent of the pinnacle into the sword realm. After several years, Yang Xiaoshan still cannot successfully cultivate one of the sword intents into the sword realm. Uncle Ding, how long did the fastest person take to cultivate the sword intent into the sword realm? Yang Xiaoshan asked Uncle Ding on the spaceship. More than 100 years. Uncle Ding said. It takes more than 100 years for just one sword intent? Yang Xiaoshan was stunned. Well, more than 100 years for one sword intent. Uncle Ding said seriously. To be precise, it is more than 170 years. Yang Xiaoshan. One sword intent, more than 170 years. Then how many years will it take for him to cultivate 15 sword intents? More than 2000 years. Yang Xiaoshan was bored. However, with your talent for swordsmanship, it shouldn't take that long. Uncle Ding said, and then paused. One sword intent should take 40 to 50 years. 40 to 50 years. That means 600 or 700 years. If you want to quickly comprehend the sword realm, it is not impossible. Uncle Ding suddenly said. Yang Xiaoshan was happy to hear this. How did you cultivate the 15 sword hearts? Said Uncle Ding. Yang Xiaoshan was startled. The reason why he was able to cultivate the 15 sword hearts so quickly was mainly because he refined the innate sword spirit. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but think, Uncle Ding, what do you mean? Some innate sword formations give birth to innate sword spirits, but stronger innate sword formations will give birth to the sword domain after a long time. Uncle Ding said, as long as you find a sword formation that gives birth to the sword domain, comprehend and refine its sword domain, your sword will have a chance to cultivate the sword domain. Yang Xiaoshan was overjoyed when he heard this. But don't be happy yet. Even in the god's domain, sword formations that give birth to the sword domain are extremely rare. It's not easy for you to find it. Uncle Ding said, and even if you find it, it may not be 100% successful in cultivating the sword domain. Yang Xiaoshan nodded. However, since he knew there was such a way, it meant that there was a chance and hope. When he was on the road, Yang Xiaoshan would stay in some cities for a day or two to get familiar with the situation in the god's domain in the Kanglan continent. Now that he has just come to the divine realm and the Kanglan continent, he needs to know more about and be familiar with the divine realm and the Kanglan continent. While traveling and practicing, Yang Xiaoshan's cultivation has improved a lot, and he is about to break through the second level of the heavenly god at any time. Originally, before coming to the divine realm, he planned to bring the galaxy giant beast with him, but considering that the galaxy giant beast is weaker and may not be able to pass through the space channel, he did not bring the galaxy giant beast with him. Moreover, the Yang family needs the galaxy giant beast for cultivation. In the divine realm, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth is much higher in quality than that of the wilderness realm, so Yang Xiaoshan's cultivation speed is much faster. Friend Yang, the Tangshan divine sect has arrived. On this day, when Yang Xiaoshan was studying the formation secrets left by his master Hanfeng, Kinyo came over and said. Yang Xiaoshan came out of the room and came to the bow of the spaceship and saw a majestic mountain range. In the mountains, there were spiritual springs and beasts, and the palaces were magnificent and beautiful. The scenery was beautiful. Countless disciples flew with swords between the peaks, exuding an amazing breath, and a great sect's momentum was overwhelming. This is the headquarters of the Tangshan divine sect. Looking at the Tangshan divine religion in front of him, Yang Xiaoshan, who had just arrived in the divine realm, felt like he had found his home. Yang Xiaoshan put away the spaceship and flew to the mountain gate of the Tangshan divine religion with Kinyo. Before he arrived at the mountain gate, he saw from afar that the plain in front of the mountain gate was crowded with countless family disciples. After arriving, Yang Xiaoshan knew that today was the day when the Tangshan divine religion conducted the assessment of the outer and inner disciples. Just as Yang Xiaoshan stepped forward and wanted to tell the disciple guarding the mountain gate that he wanted to see his master Hanfeng, there was a sudden commotion among the crowd. It's Master Shijian. Master Shijian is here to participate in the assessment of the inner disciples of the Tangshan divine religion. Yang Xiaoshan looked over and saw the Master Shijian he had seen before, walking through the air surrounded by a group of guards. Chapter 784. It will definitely alarm the sword ancestor. The Ten Swordsman is the most gifted swordsman in the young generation of Ninhei. He has 10 kinds of supreme sword intents, and is famous in Kanglan continent. Many young disciples in Ninhei regard him as their idol. Seeing the arrival of the 10 swordsmen, the scene was shaken, and many strong men bowed to him to show their respect. At this moment, suddenly, the mountain gate opened, and a group of people surged, and a large number of Tangshan Divine Sect masters flew out from the interior of Tangshan Divine Sect. The leader was none other than the Tangshan Divine Sect's Grand Elder Lu Chang. Obviously, the 10 swordsmen had arrived, and Lu Chang led everyone out to greet him. It was the first time that a disciple came to participate in the assessment, and the Tangshan Divine Sect's Grand Elder came out to greet him, which shows the importance that Tangshan Divine Sect attaches to the 10 swordsmen. However, when Master Shijian saw that the Great Elder Lu Chang came out to greet him, he did not dare to rely on his status. He quickly stepped forward and clasped his fists and said, "Zhang Jun greets the Great Elder." Lu Chang laughed and said, "Master Zhang, there is no need to be polite." Then he said warmly, "Master Zhang, how about I preside over the assessment for you today?" Generally speaking, the assessment of inner disciples can be presided over by a senior deacon. Master Shijian heard this, and said with a smile, "It is an honor for Zhang Jun to be presided over by the Great Elder." Lu Chang smiled, and then took Master Shijian to the inner disciple assessment square. Everyone was excited and agitated when they saw that the Great Elder Lu Chang of Tangshan Divine Sect was actually going to preside over the assessment for Master Shijian. Everyone was naturally excited to see Master Shijian's 10 kinds of great success realm of the strongest sword intent. I just don't know what kind of supreme godhood Master Shijian has condensed. I heard it is the Heaven Flame Godhood. Heaven Flame Godhood. Supreme Godhood. Everyone was discussing and surprised. The best godhood is rare, not to mention the best godhood among the best. Seeing everyone escorting Master Shijian to the assessment square, Yang Xiaoshan came to the disciples guarding the mountain gate, and clasped his fists and said, "I'm Yang Xiaoshan, and I'm here to pay my respects to Master Hangfeng. Please pass the message on." The disciples guarding the mountain gate were stunned. "What? You want to see Master Hangfeng?" They thought they had heard it wrong. Master Shijian and his guards had just walked a short distance when they heard that Yang Xiaoshan, a young man in a blue shirt, wanted to see Master Hangfeng. They were stunned. Tangshan Divine Sect's Great Elder Lu Chang and other masters of Tangshan Divine Sect were also stunned. Seeing Yang Xiaoshan's extraordinary demeanor, Lu Chang said with a smile, "Young master, you don't know that our sword ancestor has been in seclusion for many years to comprehend the supreme sword art, and even our leader has not been able to see him in these years." A guard behind young Master Shijian said to Yang Xiaoshan with a teasing smile, "If you participate in the inner disciple assessment and activate 100 sword tablets, you will definitely be able to alarm Master Jianzu." Everyone shook their heads and smiled. If you can activate 10 sword tablets in the inner disciple assessment, you can pass. If you can activate 20 sword tablets, it is very rare, and you can become a disciple of the elders. If you can activate 30 sword tablets, you can become a disciple of the Supreme Elder. 40 tablets are taught by the ancestors, and 50 tablets have the opportunity to become a disciple of the leader. With young Master Shijian's talent, it is not difficult to activate 50 sword tablets. But don't even think about activating 60 sword tablets. Not to mention 70 or 80. These sword tablets were personally erected by Hangfeng's sword ancestor. Up to now, there is only one person in Tangshan Divine Sect who can activate 60 sword tablets, and that is the current leader of Tangshan Divine Sect, Eluo Huaming. Even the leader of Tangshan Divine Sect, Eluo Huaming, can only activate 60 sword tablets. It is impossible to activate 100 sword tablets. Activate 100 sword tablets. Yang Xiaoshan looked at the 100 huge sword tablets on the assessment square. Each sword tablet is 100 feet high and is engraved with various sword runes. Just as the 10 swordsmen and others walked towards the sword tablets, Yang Xiaoshan also came to the senior deacon in charge of registering the inner disciples assessment and registered for the assessment. To participate in the inner disciples assessment of Tangshan Divine Sect, the conditions are not difficult. As long as the bone age is less than 2000 years, the strong people in the god realm can participate. It seems easy, but it is actually very difficult. Although the spiritual energy of the God realm is of high quality, it is difficult to cultivate to the God realm within 2000 years. Many talented disciples of many families find it difficult to achieve this with the cultivation of family resources. Hearing that Yang Xiaoshan wanted to register for the assessment, the senior deacon began to test Yang Xiaoshan's bone age. Soon, the stone mirror for detecting bone age lit up. Bone age 49. When the senior deacon saw the bone age of Yang Xiaoshan displayed on the stone mirror, he frowned. Bone age 49. Many disciples around laughed when they saw it. Bone age 49. I don't know if this guy has broken through the divine realm, but he wants to participate in the inner disciple assessment. In the divine realm, if you can break through the divine realm within 100 years, you are already a demon genius. The senior deacon looked at Yang Xiaoshan and asked, are you sure you want to participate in our Tangshan divine sect's inner disciple assessment? Yang Xiaoshan nodded. The senior deacon was surprised and then took Yang Xiaoshan to the stone mirror for detecting realm. Under the urging of his divine power, the stone mirror formation burst out a beam of light that enveloped Yang Xiaoshan. Soon, the stone mirror showed Yang Xiaoshan's realm, the peak of the late first level of the heavenly god. The peak of the late first level of the heavenly god. The family disciples who had just mocked Yang Xiaoshan for not even breaking through the divine realm stared with their eyes wide open, and then looked at Yang Xiaoshan with a look of horror. Bone age 49. Peak of the late first stage of the heavenly god. The disciples around were all looking at Yang Xiaoshan in shock. The 10 swordsman, who was about to activate the sword monument, turned his head in shock when he heard the voice. The great elder of the Tangshan divine sect, Lu Chang, was even more shocked. He left the 10 swordsmen behind, flew over at high speed, and hurried to the stone mirror. Sure enough, the 2 stone mirrors showed bone age 49. Peak of the late first stage of the heavenly god. Lu Chang's whole body shuddered, and he looked at Yang Xiaoshan, as if he was looking at a terrifying monster. He couldn't figure out how this kid practiced. The 10 swordsmen also came to the stone mirror, staring at the 2 stone mirrors, with an unbelievable look on his face. He was hailed as the first genius of the young generation in the world. He practiced for less than 1,000 years, and now he is at the peak of the late first stage of the heavenly god, which has shocked the world. And the young man in blue shirt in front of him, who has practiced for less than 50 years, is actually at the peak of the late first stage of the heavenly god like him. This is impossible. The guard behind the 10 swordsmen shook his head in shock. They had never heard of anyone who could break through the heavenly god realm in less than 100 years of cultivation, let alone break through the heavenly god realm in less than 50 years of cultivation. Moreover, Yang Xiaoshan did not just break through the heavenly god realm, but broke through to the peak of the late heavenly god first level. Isn't this even more evil than young Master Qianyu? Someone in the crowd said with a chuckle. When young Master Qianyu was mentioned, everyone's breath tightened. Young Master Qianyu, the number 1 young man in Kanglan continent. Chapter 785 onwards. Although he knew that the stone mirror test would not go wrong, Lu Chang still tested Yang Xiaoshan again in person out of caution. Of course, there was no accident. The second test result was the same as the first. Seeing that the second test result was still the same, everyone looked at Yang Xiaoshan with a complicated expression, some shocked, some incredible, some envious, all with fiery eyes. Can I comprehend the sword monument? Yang Xiaoshan asked Lu Chang and the senior deacon. Yes, yes. Lu Chang and the senior deacon woke up and said hurriedly. Immediately, under the gaze of everyone, Yang Xiaoshan walked towards the sword monument in the assessment square. Looking at Yang Xiaoshan's figure, Lu Chang was in doubt. Grand Elder, should we report to the Lord Master? The senior deacon hesitated. If it was something else, of course they couldn't alarm their Lord Master. But the bone age is 49, and the peak of the late first level of the heavenly god. This is a situation that has never appeared in the Kanglan continent. Lu Chang hesitated for a moment and said, the leader is receiving the goddess of 10,000 aspects. Let's not disturb the leader yet. Wait until he comprehends the sword tablets and see what happens. The goddess of 10,000 aspects was of an extremely noble status, so he decided to wait and see how many sword tablets Yang Xiaoshan could comprehend before deciding whether to report it. If he reported it to their leader now, and Yang Xiaoshan only comprehended 20 or 30 sword tablets in the end, it would be embarrassing. Seeing Yang Xiaoshan walking towards the sword tablets in the square, many disciples started to discuss. What do you think? How many sword tablets can Yang Xiaoshan comprehend? The leader Tangshan comprehended 61 sword tablets back then, and Yang Xiaoshan might be able to comprehend 70. That's not necessarily true. Although he practices fast, it doesn't mean that his talent in swordsmanship is necessarily strong. As everyone was discussing, Yang Xiaoshan came to the sword tablets. The 10 sword masters also stared at Yang Xiaoshan without blinking. He didn't believe that Yang Xiaoshan could really comprehend 70 sword tablets. Yang Xiaoshan came to the sword stele and looked at the sword runes on the sword stele. For a moment, everyone around was silent. How long do you think it will take him to comprehend the first sword stele? After a while, someone couldn't help asking. About an hour. Someone said uncertainly. Back then, Luo Huaming, the leader of the Tangshan divine sect, used 1 hour to comprehend the first sword stele and then activated it. He is also the fastest person to comprehend the first sword stele so far. While everyone was discussing, Yang Xiaoshan suddenly walked towards the second sword stele. Seeing this, everyone was stunned and didn't understand what was going on. Could he not have comprehended the first sword stele and then comprehended the second sword stele? The guard behind the 10 swordsmen couldn't help saying. Everyone looked at each other. Lu Chang was also puzzled. After standing in front of the second sword stele for a while, Yang Xiaoshan suddenly walked towards the third sword stele. Seeing this, everyone was even more puzzled, and the discussion gradually increased. In this way, Yang Xiaoshan stood in front of the third sword monument for a while, and then came to the fourth sword monument. Seeing this, the guard behind the 10 swordsmen said he couldn't comprehend the first 3 sword monuments, let alone the sword monuments behind. The sword monuments are more difficult as they go to the back. Lu Chan frowned. Could it be that Yang Xiaoshan's sword talent is really average? Generally speaking, as long as the sword talent is slightly good, one can comprehend the first 3 sword monuments. In this way, after Yang Xiaoshan stood in front of each sword monument for a while, he walked to the next sword monument. Soon, Yang Xiaoshan walked to the 10th sword monument. Seeing Yang Xiaoshan walking in front of each sword monument like a cursory visit, Lu Chang shook his head and was very disappointed. Originally, he was expecting Yang Xiaoshan's sword talent to be as amazing as his cultivation speed. But who would have thought that the sword talent was so average? He couldn't even comprehend the first few sword monuments. Fortunately, he didn't rush to report to the leader, otherwise it would be a big embarrassment. The 10 sword master heaved a sigh of relief. He was worried just now, but now he doesn't have to worry anymore. At this moment, he suddenly looked at Yang Xiaoshan walking towards the first sword monument. Does he want to continue to comprehend the first sword monument? Many masters shook their heads. If he couldn't comprehend it the first time, it would be even more impossible to comprehend it the second time. Just when Lu Chang was completely disappointed and was about to let the 10 sword master continue to preside over the assessment, suddenly, he saw Yang Xiaoshan open his palm with one hand, lift it up, and said at the same time, "Rise, rise." The 10 sword monuments that had been completely motionless before gushed out heavy light, and one after another amazing sword energy shot out from the first sword monument and went straight into the sky. Then, it was the second sword monument, the third, the fourth. 10 sword monuments, the sword energy shot out at the same time. The light of the 10 sword monuments illuminated the entire assessment square. Even though it was daytime, it was still so dazzling. Everyone stared blankly at the 10 sword monuments that suddenly gushed out heavy sword energy. 10 sword tablets. The guards behind Master Shijian were dumbfounded. Yang Xiaoshan didn't just take a quick look, but he really comprehended all these sword tablets. And he comprehended 10 sword tablets at once. Not only Master Shijian, but even Lu Chang, the great elder of Tangshan divine sect, was dumbfounded. Although there are thousands of sword geniuses who comprehend sword tablets, no sword genius has ever been able to comprehend 2 sword tablets at once. Not to mention comprehending 10 sword tablets in a row. The crowd who had just been talking and gloating over the misfortune was silent again at this moment. As the sword energy of the 10 sword tablets in front of him was spraying, Yang Xiaoshan came to the 11th sword tablet. As before, after standing for a while, Yang Xiaoshan walked towards the 12th sword tablet. Seeing this, everyone looked strange. But this time, no one gloated. I don't believe he can comprehend 10 sword tablets in one go again this time, said a sword ancestor. Master Shijian also clenched his fists. He also didn't believe that Yang Xiaoshan could comprehend 10 sword tablets at once again. At this time, Yang Xiaoshan walked to the 13th sword tablet, then the 14th, the 15th. Soon, Yang Xiaoshan walked to the 20th sword tablet. But then, everyone saw Yang Xiaoshan standing in front of the 20th sword tablet for a while, and then walked to the 21st sword tablet. Everyone gasped. Could it be that he wanted to comprehend 11 sword tablets at once this time? Just as everyone was thinking so, Yang Xiaoshan walked to the 22nd sword tablet. Seeing this, everyone's faces were full of colors. Could it be that Yang Xiaoshan wanted to comprehend 12 sword tablets at once? But after a while, Yang Xiaoshan walked to the 23rd sword tablet, then the 24th. When Yang Xiaoshan came to the 30th sword tablet, he stopped. Then, like before, he opened his palm and raised it upwards. Rise. Something will happen later. If there is no fourth update before 10 o'clock in the evening, you don't have to wait. Chapter 786. She also wanted to see what kind of person Yang Xiaoshan was. As Yang Xiaoshan shouted arise, all of a sudden, from the 11th sword monument to the 30th sword monument, light burst out, and one after another amazing sword energy shot out from the sword monuments. This time, the sword energy was even more amazing, and the light was even brighter. The sword energy was no longer just illuminating the test square, but illuminating the layers of space. Many masters and disciples of the Tangshan divine sect saw the sword energy and light of the 20 sword monuments. What's going on with such amazing sword energy? It's coming from the test square. Who caused such amazing sword energy on the sword monuments? Could it be that Master Shijian? I heard that Master Shijian came to test our inner disciples of the Tangshan divine sect today, and even the great elder went out to greet him in person. Let's go and see what's going on. One by one, the disciples and masters of the Tangshan divine sect flew quickly to the test square. At this time, everyone in the test square was staring at the 20 sword monuments in a daze. It turned out that Yang Xiaoshan didn't want to comprehend 11 sword monuments in one go, nor did he want to comprehend 12 in one go, but 20 in one go, comprehending a total of 20 sword tablets at once. Lu Chang was also extremely shocked. His hands were shaking, and he felt like he had nowhere to put them. Just now, Yang Xiaoshan comprehended 10 sword tablets at once, which was incredible, and now, he actually comprehended 20 sword tablets at once. He was simply. Grand Elder, should we report to the Lord Master? The senior deacon asked in a trembling voice. Lu Chang took a deep breath. Wait a little longer. Let's wait a little longer. In the shock of everyone, Yang Xiaoshan walked to the 31st sword tablet. After standing for a while, Yang Xiaoshan walked to the 32nd sword tablet. Then, it was the 33rd sword tablet. The further back the sword tablets were, the harder it was to comprehend them, but Yang Xiaoshan stood in front of each sword tablet for the same amount of time, about 30 breaths before leaving, and then walked to the next sword tablet. Soon, Yang Xiaoshan came to the 50th sword tablet. Just when everyone thought that Yang Xiaoshan would comprehend 20 sword tablets at once like the second time, Yang Xiaoshan continued to walk to the 51st sword tablet. Everyone was stunned. Could it be that Yang Xiaoshan wanted to comprehend 21 sword tablets at once instead of 20? But soon, everyone realized that they were wrong, because Yang Xiaoshan then walked to the 52nd sword tablet. Just when Yang Xiaoshan walked to the 53rd sword tablet, the senior deacon asked again with a trembling voice, Grand Elder, should we report to the master? Lu Chang's voice trembled. Wait a little longer. Wait a little longer. After all, it was not certain whether Yang Xiaoshan could comprehend so many sword tablets at once this time. Finally, Yang Xiaoshan came to the 60th sword tablet. Everyone held their breath. Under everyone's gaze, Yang Xiaoshan glanced at the 31st to the 60th sword tablets, then raised his palm upwards, and the familiar voice sounded again from the square. Rise. Rise. From the 31st to the 60th sword tablets, all the light and sword energy gushed out at the same time. The sword energy of the 30 sword tablets stirred up the endless airwaves in the sky, and the wind and clouds changed color instantly. The light of the 30 sword monuments illuminated the peaks and palaces of Tangshan sect. The disciples and masters who were driven out from the interior of Tangshan sect were all stunned when they saw the 30 sword monuments emitting heavy sword energy. Then, everyone looked at the blue-shirted figure standing in the center of the square in horror. Lu Chang's tongue trembled. At this moment, the senior deacon behind him shouted to the disciples around him, "We can't wait any longer. Quick, report to the master. If something goes wrong, I will take responsibility. We can't wait any longer. If something goes wrong, I will take responsibility." Lu Chang looked at the furious senior deacon behind him and was stunned. In fact, at this moment, there was no need for the senior deacon to report at all, because the sword energy and light bursting out of the 30 sword monuments, even Luo Huaming, who was receiving the goddess of 10,000 aspects in the main hall, saw the amazing sword energy. The goddess of 10,000 aspects sensed the sword energy, and turned her head in surprise. "Go and ask what's going on." Luo Huaming looked at the sword energy in doubt, and said to a great elder beside him. The other ancestors in the hall were also puzzled. Soon, the great elder's face flushed, and he ran back excitedly, so excited that he was even a little incoherent. "Report to the master, a disciple just passed the inner disciple assessment, and activated 60 sword tablets." "What? Activated 60 sword tablets?" All the ancestors present were shocked. You know, only Luo Huaming and the Tangshan divine sect activated 60 sword tablets. After being surprised, Luo Huaming said excitedly, "Is it the 10 swordsmen?" The goddess of 10 dimensions was also moved. She had heard of the fame of the 10 swordsmen. This person's sword talent was even higher than the rumors. But the great elder shook his head excitedly and said, "It's not the 10 swordsmen. His name is Yang Xiaoshan." Then he said in a trembling voice, "It took him less than an hour to comprehend 60 sword tablets." "What?" Luo Huaming and the ancestors present were shocked. "Less than an hour? You mean, he comprehended 60 sword tablets in less than an hour?" Luo Huaming stood up suddenly. Even the goddess of 10,000 aspects was extremely shocked. She knew about the sword tablets in the Tangshan divine religion's test square. It was very rare to comprehend a sword tablet in an hour. But this man named Yang Xiaoshan actually comprehended 60 sword tablets in 1 hour. No, it was less than an hour. Yes, he comprehended 60 sword tablets in less than an hour. The Supreme Elder couldn't help but tremble in his voice. The first time he comprehended 10 sword tablets in one go. The second time he comprehended 20 in one go. And the third time he comprehended 30 in one go. 3 times, he comprehended 60 sword tablets. Luo Huaming and the ancestors of the Tangshan divine religion were like listening to a book from heaven. "Quick, everyone go to the test square." After waking up, Luo Huaming shouted excitedly, and then rushed out of the hall regardless of everything. All the ancestors immediately rushed out of the hall, and rushed to the test square with Luo Huaming. Seeing that Luo Huaming was so excited that he forgot himself, the goddess of 10,000 aspects was not displeased, but followed Luo Huaming with the same excitement, and flew to the test square together. She also wanted to see what kind of person Yang Xiaoshan was, who could comprehend 60 sword tablets in less than an hour. Just as Luo Huaming and others were rushing to the assessment square, Yang Xiaoshan walked to the 61st sword tablet, then the 62nd, the 63rd. When Luo Huaming, the goddess of the myriad aspects and others were about to arrive at the square, Yang Xiaoshan had already arrived in front of the 100th sword tablet. Yang Xiaoshan scanned the first to the 100th sword tablets, then raised his palm to the sky and shouted again, "Rise." This time, 100 sword tablets simultaneously gushed out heavy sword energy and light. Luo Huaming, the goddess of the myriad aspects and others all stopped, stunned to see the 100 sword tablets in the square gushing out sword energy. Chapter 787, Origin Key and Hunyuan Heavenly Tribulation Thunderwater. 100. Luo Huaming said dully, and then he was so excited that he was a little incoherent. Son of God. Our Tangshan divine sect finally has a son of God. This is the rule set by Han Feng. If someone can activate 100 sword tablets, he will be the son of God of the Tangshan divine sect. The ancestors of the Tangshan divine sect were also excited. Their Tangshan divine sect finally had a genius with 100 sword tablets. Their sword ancestor Han Feng once said that only a genius who comprehended 100 sword tablets could inherit his mantle. Just when Luo Huaming and others were excited, suddenly, the 100 sword tablets flashed, and 100 primordial spirits flew out of the sword tablets, and flew into Yang Xiaoshen's body. Yang Xiaoshen was surprised. Then he was happy. He didn't expect that comprehending 100 sword tablets would give him 100 primordial spirits as a reward. Yang Xiaoshen couldn't help but practice the skills and initially refine the 100 primordial spirits in his body. At this time, the excited Luo Huaming and others finally arrived at the assessment square. Greetings, Master. Seeing Luo Huaming and others coming, the great elder Lu Chang hurriedly stepped forward to salute. Luo Huaming nodded to everyone and walked towards Yang Xiaoshen. Yang Xiaoshen hesitated for a moment, clasped his fists to Luo Huaming and said, "Greetings, Master." Luo Huaming nodded to Yang Xiaoshen with a smile on his face. "Okay. What's your name, little brother?" "I'm Yang Xiaoshen." Yang Xiaoshen said. Luo Huaming savored it carefully. "Xiaoshen, Dacian, but this name is good." Then, he introduced the goddess of Wangxiang to Yang Xiaoshen and said with a smile, "Xiaoshen, this is the goddess of Wangxiang Palace. Wangxiang Palace is the first force in Kanglan continent." Yang Xiaoshen looked at the beautiful woman in front of him, who was as beautiful as Long Qingxuan and Wanning, and was a little surprised. He didn't expect to meet the goddess of Wangxiang Palace here. The goddess of Wangxiang stared at Yang Xiaoshen with her beautiful eyes, and said with a smile, "Young Master Yang's talent in swordsmanship is amazing, which makes Junlan amazed. I just don't know how many kinds of sword intents you have cultivated." Everyone's eyes fell on Yang Xiaoshen. Even the 10 sword masters were curious about how many kinds of sword intent Yang Xiaoshen had cultivated, and what realms had each sword intent cultivated to. Yang Xiaoshen smiled and said, "People in the outside world say that Miss Lin's swordsmanship is unparalleled, but I don't know how many kinds of sword intent Miss Lin has cultivated." Upon hearing this, the goddess of all aspects Lin Junlan was stunned, then smiled brightly, like 1,000 flowers blooming. "I hope I can have the opportunity to learn from Master Yang in the future." Then she said to Luo Huaming, "Master Luo, this matter is over, and I should return to the temple of all aspects. Goodbye." "Goodbye, Miss Lin." Luo Huaming sent the goddess of all aspects Lin Junlan out of the Tangshan divine sect's mountain gate, then turned back, and then cordially took Yang Xiaoshen and Kuiniu into the Tangshan divine sect's mountain gate. The disciples who participated in the assessment watched Yang Xiaoshen enter the Tangshan divine sect's mountain gate, all with envy, amazement, and speculation. "How many sword intents do you think Yang Xiaoshen has cultivated?" Master Shijian cultivated 10 kinds of the strongest sword intents of the Great Success Realm, which should be able to activate 50 sword tablets. "I think Yang Xiaoshen has cultivated at least 11 kinds of the strongest sword intents of the Perfect Realm. I think it's more than that. His sword talent is definitely more evil than Master Kuiniu." Everyone was talking. Master Shijian watched Yang Xiaoshen leave with a complicated expression. He looked at the 100 sword tablets that still had a faint afterglow, clenched his fists, and walked towards the sword tablets. Since Yang Xiaoshen could comprehend 10 sword tablets at once, he didn't believe that he couldn't do it. After Yang Xiaoshen was invited into the Tangshan divine sect by Luo Huaming and others, he knew that comprehending 100 sword tablets would make him the son of the Tangshan divine sect. Yang Xiaoshen was arranged to live in the palace of the son of the Tangshan divine sect. What puzzled Yang Xiaoshen was that he had comprehended 100 sword tablets. Logically, if his master Han Feng was there, he would have appeared long ago, but his master never appeared. Is his master not here? The next morning, after Yang Xiaoshen had refined dozens of Hangmen Qi, Luo Huaming came to find Yang Xiaoshen and asked if he was used to living here. If he had any needs, he could go directly to him and discuss the matter of conferring the Son of God with Yang Zai Ocean. Tangshan Divine Sect is one of the 10 superpowers in Kanglan continent. Conferring the Son of God is naturally not a trivial matter, so a grand ceremony is required. Yang Zai Ocean asked about Han Feng. A few years ago, Master said that he was going to find the sword formation that gave birth to the sword field. Luo Huaming did not hide it and said, Master is not at the mountain gate. Hearing that Han Feng went out to find the sword formation that gave birth to the sword field, Yang Zai Ocean was surprised. Do you know where Master Sword Ancestor has gone, and when he will be back? Luo Huaming shook his head. Master's whereabouts are uncertain. No one knows when he will be back. It may be at least 10 years, and at most several decades. Then he smiled to Yang Zai Ocean. You are now the son of God of our Tangshan Divine Sect. From now on, you have to change your words. Call me senior brother, and my master will be your master. The two chatted for a while, and Yang Zai Ocean couldn't help but ask about the Sand of Time, the Key of Han Meng, the Key of Origin and the Hunyuan Heavenly Tribulation Thunderwater. Luo Huaming was stunned for a while, then smiled and said, the things that junior brother wants are all treasures from the divine realm. We in the Tangshan Divine Sect do have some Sand of Time and Primordial Key. However, there is not much Origin Key and Hunyuan Heavenly Tribulation Thunderwater left. Even I cannot use them. The Origin Key and Hunyuan Heavenly Tribulation Thunderwater of the sect are to be used to reward the sect's core disciples for competitions. The first place in each core disciple competition will be rewarded with 10 Origin Key and a mouthful of Hunyuan Heavenly Tribulation Thunderwater. Yang Zai Ocean was sweating. Only 10 Origin Key and a mouthful of Hunyuan Heavenly Tribulation Thunderwater will be rewarded? Yang Zai Ocean asked. Then, senior brother, can other disciples participate in the core disciple competition of the sect? Luo Huaming was startled, looked at Yang Zai Ocean, and said with a smile, Junior brother, do you want to participate too? Junior brother, although your talent in swordsmanship is amazing, all those who participate in the annual core disciple competition of the sect are above the 10th level of Heavenly God, and you are only at the 1st level of Heavenly God now. Yang Zai Ocean smiled, and then asked, I wonder if senior brother knows any other ways to obtain a large amount of Origin Key and Hunyuan Heavenly Tribulation Thunderwater? Luo Huaming thought for a while and said, as far as I know, Wang Xiang Sword Ancestor once obtained an incomplete sword formation, and has never been able to complete it. He once said that, if someone can help him complete the sword formation, he will give the other person 100 Origin Key and 10 mouthfuls of Hunyuan Heavenly Tribulation Thunderwater. 100 Origin Key and 10 mouthfuls of Hunyuan Heavenly Tribulation Thunderwater. Yang Zai Ocean's heart was moved. If there were 10 more mouthfuls of Hunyuan Heavenly Tribulation Thunderwater, his charred tree roots should be able to revive. As for the 100 Origin Auras, they should be able to help him cultivate his Origin Divine Body to the 2nd level. Although it is only the 2nd level, the power of his Origin Divine Body will be greatly enhanced. However, even the 10,000 phases Sword Ancestor cannot repair this incomplete sword formation. It is difficult to repair it. Luo Huaming shook his head. Chapter 788, Prince Kayanayu. I wonder if you know what kind of sword formation that incomplete sword formation is? Yang Zai Ocean asked. I heard that it was left by the Lord of Heaven and Earth. Luo Huaming said, as for what kind of sword formation it is, I'm not sure. Lord of Heaven and Earth. Yang Zai Ocean was very surprised. Yes, Lord of Heaven and Earth. When he mentioned the Lord of Heaven and Earth, Luo Huaming looked admiring. Big brother, I want to try and see if I can help Wang Xiang Sword Ancestor complete that incomplete sword formation. I wonder if big brother can help me introduce him. Yang Zai Ocean asked. Luo Huaming hesitated for a moment and said, in a few days, Wang Xiang Sword Ancestor will hold a sword competition. Yesterday, Wang Xiang Goddess sent an invitation to invite me to go. Junior brother can go to Wang Xiang Palace with me then. Okay. Yang Zai Ocean said immediately. Later, he learned from Luo Huaming that Kanglan Chamber of Commerce occasionally auctions the origin of Qi and Hunyuan Xianji Thunderwater. After a while, Luo Huaming left. Wang Xiang Sword Ancestor Sword competition will be in a month, so in a month, he will call Yang Zai Ocean again. As for the next core disciple competition of the sect, it would not be too late to participate in it after half a year, when he returns from the sword conference. As for his Son of God ceremony, he discussed with Luo Huaming, and thought it would be better to wait until his master Han Feng returns to hold it. Although the Son of God ceremony was postponed, Yang Xiaoshan is now a Son of God. In the Tangshan Divine Sect, he can enjoy all the rights and resources of the Son of God. After Luo Huaming left, Yang Xiaoshan continued to refine the Hang Meng key he had obtained. The news that Yang Xiaoshan activated the 100 sword tablets of the Tangshan Divine Sect and became the Son of God of the Tangshan Divine Sect soon spread, causing surprise to many superpowers in the Kanglan continent. After the goddess of Wangxiang returned to the Wangxiang palace, she also told her master Wangxiang's sword ancestor what she saw at that time in detail. After listening to the description of the goddess of Wangxiang, the sword ancestor of Wang Jian exclaimed, "He has comprehended 40 sword tablets in one go. This child's sword talent is far better than that of Master Qianyu. In the future, this child will be incredible." The news soon reached the ears of Master Qianyu of the Light Divine Clan. Comprehended 40 sword tablets in one go? Young Master Qianyu frowned. Yes, many people say that Yang Xiaoshan's sword talent is stronger than yours. I'm afraid he has already comprehended 13 kinds of the strongest sword intent, and all of them have been cultivated to perfection. Young Master Qianyu's subordinates hesitated for a moment and said. Hearing this, young Master Qianyu's face sank. Go and find out whether Yang Xiaoshan will participate in the sword competition of Wangxiang Palace. Yes, young master. Yang Xiaoshan didn't know about the outside world's discussion. Soon, he refined all the 100 primordial spirits he got. After refining, he came to the library of Tangshan Divine Religion to read various books introducing the Divine Realm and Kanglan continent, and further understand the situation of the major forces in the Divine Realm and Kanglan continent. At the same time, he would look through some information about the Sand of Time, the Primordial Spirit, the Origin Spirit, and the Hunyuan Heavenly Tribulation Thunderwater. Kanglan Palace. Suddenly, while looking through some books introducing the Origin Spirit, Yang Xiaoshan noticed an ancient book that introduced the Kanglan Palace in detail. According to the book, 90% of the origin of the Kanglan continent comes from this Kanglan Palace. The Kanglan Palace was left by the Lord of Kanglan. However, the Kanglan Palace is only opened once every 10,000 years. To enter the Kanglan Palace, you must wait for the Kanglan Palace to open. The next time the Kanglan Palace opens will be 100 years later. 100 years. Yang Xiaoshan was quite helpless. He couldn't wait 100 years. So, he still had to think of other ways. A month later, Luo Huaming came to call Yang Xiaoshan, and then went to the Wangxiang Palace with Yang Xiaoshan and several ancestors of Tangshan Divine Religion. Junior brother, this time at the Wangxiang Palace Sword Conference, Huan He God King will also bring Master Qianyu to participate. At that time, you must be careful of Master Qianyu. On the way, Luo Huaming said to Yang Xiaoshan. Yang Xiaoshan comprehended 40 sword tablets at a time. Now many people in Kanglan continent are fanning the flames, saying that Yang Xiaoshan's sword talent is 10 times more than Master Qianyu. Some even said that Yang Xiaoshan could crush Master Qianyu with just one finger. Hearing it once didn't seem like a big deal, but after hearing it many times, young Master Qianyu was furious and threatened to make Yang Xiaoshan look bad at the sword competition. Afterwards, Luo Huaming told Yang Xiaoshan about some recent rumors in Kanglan continent and young Master Qianyu's anger. Yang Xiaoshan nodded and then said, Big brother, who do you think is deliberately spreading these rumors to cause conflicts between our Tangshan Divine Religion and the Light Divine Clan? Who else except Juking Palace and Blood Sword Sect? Luo Huaming said with a cold face. Juking Palace and Blood Sword Sect are also one of the top 10 superpowers in Kanglan continent, but they have always had a bad relationship with Tangshan Divine Religion, and have always targeted Tangshan Divine Religion. 10 days later, when Yang Xiaoshan and his party arrived at Wangxiang Palace, it was already bright. Because of the Wangxiang Palace sword competition, the entire Wangxiang Palace was extremely lively, and strong men from all sides gathered. Wangxiang Palace is located on a mountain and is built in an extremely magnificent manner. The entire Wangxiang Palace is composed of 100,000 palaces, forming a Wangxiang sword formation. The arrival of Yang Xiaoshan and his party attracted the attention of powerful people from all sides. Is he the son of Tangshan who has cultivated 13 kinds of the most powerful sword intent? It should be him. Many people in the crowd whispered to each other. Many masters from sects and families also bowed to Luo Huaming. At this time, another shout came from behind. The master of Juking Palace is here. When everyone heard it, they all looked sideways. They saw a middle-aged man in grey clothes leading a large group of masters. The middle-aged man was Nangang Chun, the master of Juking Palace. Nangang Chun saw Luo Huaming in front of him, and he couldn't help but walk over with a smile. When he came to Luo Huaming, he clasped his fists and said with a smile, "So it's Master Luo. Master Luo, how are you?" Then his eyes fell on Yang Xiaoshan. This must be the son of the Tangshan god. Yang Xiaoyao, you have cultivated 13 kinds of the strongest sword intent, and all of them are perfect, which really shocked my Kanglan continent. Obviously, he deliberately spread the news that Yang Xiaoshan cultivated 13 kinds of the strongest sword intent. If Yang Xiaoshan didn't cultivate 13 kinds of the strongest sword intent, and all of them were not perfect, it would be a big embarrassment. How do you know that I have only cultivated 13 kinds of the strongest sword intent? Yang Xiaoshan stared at him. Nangang Chun was stunned, and then he said with a teasing smile, "Could it be that Yang Xiaoyao has cultivated 14 kinds of the strongest sword intent?" Everyone in the Juking Palace laughed out loud. Afterwards, Nangang Chun led everyone in the Juking Palace into the Wangxiang Palace. The young man behind Nangang Chun looked Yang Xiaoshan up and down, not hiding the hostility in his eyes. Judging from his attire, the other party should be Chen Jinting, the son of god of Juking Palace. Luo Huaming also took Yang Xiaoshan into the Wangxiang Palace. In the Wangxiang Palace, Master Qianyu was already sitting. When he heard someone say that the son of god Tangshan had arrived, he suddenly looked in the direction of Yang Xiaoshan. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 789, Not Qualified to Ask for Advice. Is he that Yang Xiaoshan? Young Master Qianyu looked at Yang Xiaoshan with a sharp gaze and asked his subordinates behind him. It should be him. The master of the Light Feather clan quickly answered. Young Master Qianyu snorted coldly. The Huanhe God King sitting next to him also stared at Yang Xiaoshan, but what surprised him was that there seemed to be an extremely terrifying light power in Yang Xiaoshan's body. This light power seemed to be a light power he had never seen before. Under the warm welcome of the masters of the Wangxiang Palace, Yang Xiaoshan and Luo Huaming were arranged to sit in the front row. The palace master of the Juking Palace, Nangang Chun, and the Juking godson Chen Jinting were sitting next to Yang Xiaoshan. Chen Jinting looked at Yang Xiaoshan sitting next to him with a dead face. I heard that the swordsmanship of the Tangshan godson was amazing, and he comprehended 40 Tangshan swords steely in one fell swoop. At the swordsmanship conference later, I would like to ask the Tangshan godson for a few tricks. I hope the Tangshan godson will not hesitate to teach me. Yang Xiaoshan did not look at the other party and took a sip of the wine of the Wangxiang Palace. When Chen Jinting's face darkened, Yang Xiaoshan's voice rang out, "Ask me for a few moves. I'm afraid you are not qualified." Everyone around was stunned. The masters of Juking Palace were even more furious. Chen Jinting's dead face was also very angry. "I'm not qualified?" Then he said, "Okay. I'll see later if I'm not qualified." As the son of god of Juking Palace, he is the first of the younger generation of Juking Palace. His sword talent is even catching up with Qianyu Gongzi, who is known as the first of the younger generation of Kanglan continent. Now Yang Xiaoshan actually said that he is not qualified. Nangang Chun smiled at Luo Huaming. "Master Luo, the son of god of your Tangshan divine sect is really arrogant." Luo Huaming looked at Nangang Chun with a sinister smile. "Please stay away from me." Just when Nangang-chun was confused, Luo Huaming said, "You are too arrogant." Nangang-chun's face suddenly flushed, and a trace of coldness flashed in his eyes. After a while, Blood Sword Sect leader Huan also arrived with a group of Blood Sword Sect masters. Huan was naturally unhappy when he saw Luo Huaming and Yang Xiaoshan. The sword competition of Wangxiang Palace is a grand event of Kanglan continent. Wangxiang Sword Ancestor invited them, so all the top 10 superpowers of Kanglan continent were present. As everyone arrived, Wangxiang Sword Ancestor, Wangxiang Palace Master, Wangxiang Goddess and a group of masters also arrived. Wanxiang Jianzhu glanced at the strong men from all sides. When his eyes swept over Yang Xiaoshan, he took a second look. He stood up and said to everyone, "Xiao Xiang, thank you all for coming to participate in the sword competition. The sword competition aims to prosper and improve the sword of our Kanglan continent. Everyone will compete later. Harmony is the most precious. Don't hurt the harmony. This sword competition, the Heavenly God Realm is one group, and the Lord God Realm is one group. The first place in each group will be rewarded with 2 divine spirit veins, 20 origin auras, and 2 mouthfuls of Hunyuan Heavenly Tribulation Thunder Water." Hearing the first prize, whether it was Master Kaianai or the Juking God Sun Shenjinting, their eyes lit up. Whether it was 2 divine spirit veins, 20 origin auras, or 2 mouthfuls of Hunyuan Heavenly Tribulation Thunder Water, it was a big temptation for everyone. First, the disciples of the Heavenly God Realm will discuss swordsmanship. I wonder who will go first. Wanxiang Jianzhu glanced at everyone and smiled. "I'll go first." As soon as Wanxiang Jianzhu finished speaking, he saw the Juking God Sun Shenjinting stand up from his seat and land in the center of the hall. Then, he pointed his sword at Yang Xiaoshan. "Yang Xiaoshan, didn't you say that I'm not qualified to learn from you? Come down." Then he said, "Don't worry, I will suppress my realm to the peak of the late first level of the Heavenly God to fight you." Everyone's eyes fell on Yang Xiaoshan. "Fighting me with a suppressed realm?" Yang Xiaoshan looked at Chen Jinting. "Yes." Chen Jinting said coldly, "Come down. No need to bother so much, defeating you is just a snap of the fingers." Yang Xiaoshan shook his head and said, and then he flicked his finger casually. Suddenly, the whole hall was violently shaken. Before Chen Jinting could react, he was hit by a force so powerful that he could not imagine. The whole person flew out, smashed all the way out of the hall, and fell on the stone lion outside the hall. The stone lion was shattered, and Chen Jinting vomited blood. What? The hall was silent. Everyone looked at Chen Jinting, who was blown away in surprise. As the son of the god of Juking Palace, Chen Jinting's combat power was naturally not weak. Not only was it not weak, but it was also very strong, far exceeding the disciples of the same realm. However, Chen Jinting, who was at the 7th level of the Heavenly God Realm, was actually blasted away by Yang Xiaoshan, who was at the 1st level of the Heavenly God Realm. And seeing how seriously injured Chen Jinting looked, he might not even be able to get up. Complete defeat. Even Nangang-chun, the lord of the Juking Palace, was shocked and couldn't believe it. He was clear about the strength and combat power of his disciple. He had never met an opponent in the same realm. When he competed with opponents of the same realm, he always won easily with an invincible momentum. Now, he was defeated by Yang Xiaoshan, who was at the 1st level of the Heavenly God Realm. Although it was his disciple who was careless just now, it can also be seen that Yang Xiaoshan's combat power is terrifying. Luo Huaming, who was sitting next to Yang Xiaoshan, was also shocked when he saw Chen Jinting being blasted away. And young Master Kaianai, who originally didn't care about Yang Xiaoshan, finally looked solemn. The goddess of the 10,000 phases stared at Yang Xiaoshan with her beautiful eyes. In the silence, the master of Wangxiang Palace slowed down and said, "I didn't expect that Tangshan God's son has such a strong fighting power. Who else wants to compete with Tangshan God's son now?" Perhaps it was because the fighting power Yang Xiaoshan showed just now was really terrifying. For a while, no one dared to come out. Seeing that no one came out, after waiting for a while, the master of Wangxiang Palace said, "If no one comes out again, Tangshan God's son will win the 1st place in the God group. I'll do it." At this time, a voice sounded, and then a figure flew up and landed in the center of the hall. It was Wang Shu, the son of the Blood Sword Sect. As soon as Wang Shu came down, he used the power of the 9th level of the god to the extreme, staring at Yang Xiaoshan in a serious battle. Yang Xiaoshan, am I qualified to learn a few moves from you? Come down. You. Still not qualified. Yang Xiaoshan said, and after that, he also casually flicked his fingers. The whole hall shook violently again. Looking at the finger force coming, Wang Shu shouted loudly, and suddenly swung his sword. The sword energy surged, and turned into one huge sword dragon after another, bombarding Yang Xiaoshan's finger force. But it was useless. Yang Xiaoshan used his finger force to instantly blast the sword dragon to pieces, hitting Wang Shu. Wang Shu was blasted away again, just like Chen Jinting before. He was blasted out of the hall, and fell heavily on the ground outside, covered in blood. Wang Shu wanted to get up, but he couldn't. Seeing this result, everyone gasped and looked at Yang Xiaoshan in horror, as if they were looking at a monster. It was incredible that Chen Jinting, who was at the 1st level of the heavenly god, was blasted away with a flick of his finger, and now, Wang Shu, who was at the 9th level of the heavenly god, was still blasted away with a flick of his finger. Chapter 790, Master Kayanayu, you are still not qualified. The hand of Master Kayanayu holding the wine glass trembled, and the wine in the glass spilled out. Even the Wangxiang sword ancestor looked at Yang Xiaoshan in shock. It is not that there are no cross-border victories, but this one is too terrifying. Although it is rare for a 1st level heavenly god to cross the border and defeat a 2nd level heavenly god or even a 3rd level heavenly god, it still happens occasionally. However, it seems that the 1st level heavenly god has only crossed the border and defeated the 7th level heavenly god once in Kanglang continent. That was the battle between the Lord of Kanglang and the Demon of Heavenly Tribulation. Back then, the Lord of Kanglang won. But a 1st level heavenly god defeating a 9th level heavenly god has never happened in Kanglang continent. Never. Everyone looked at Yang Xiaoshan as if he were a monster, including Luo Huaming. Although Luo Huaming had guessed that Yang Xiaoshan's combat power must be amazing, he had never guessed that Yang Xiaoshan's combat power was so amazing. Previously, when the heartless godson Chen Jinting wanted to ask Yang Xiaoshan for advice, he was still worried, but now, he didn't know how to describe his mood at the moment. The dripping of water could be heard in the hall. After a long time, the Lord of Wangxiang Palace said with a complicated expression, "Is there anyone who wants to learn from the son of Tangshan?" The whole hall was still silent. If no one wants to learn from the son of Tangshan, then the 1st place in the heavenly god group of this Sordeo conference will be the son of Tangshan. When the Lord of Wangxiang Palace said this, his eyes could not help but sweep over young Master Kayanayu. Many people in the hall looked at young Master Kayanayu. Young Master Kayanayu felt the eyes of the crowd and couldn't help but blush. He took a deep breath, slowly stood up, and then flew to the center of the hall. He stared at Yang Xiaoshan. "I'm young Master Kayanayu of the Light God clan. I want to learn a few moves from you. Come down." At this point, he stretched out his divine power of the late 10th level of the heavenly god. I saw that the layers of light divine power formed a sea of light around his body. What was surprising was that a pair of light wings actually grew behind young Master Kayanayu. This pair of light wings was completely condensed by the power of light. Angel wings. Many ancestors were shocked. Only disciples with amazing blood in the Light God clan can grow angel wings. There are countless disciples of the Light God clan. In millions of years, only one person has grown angel wings, and that is the Light Saint's ancestor. He is a peerless and amazing figure. And now, young Master Kayanayu also has angel wings. Doesn't that mean that young Master Kayanayu may grow into a being like the Light Saint ancestor in the future? Yang Xiaoshan looked at the pair of wings of light behind young Master Kayanayu and said calmly, "Young Master Kayanayu, you are still not qualified." Everyone who was surprised by young Master Kayanayu's angel wings was stunned. What did this Tangshan godson say just now? Young Master Kayanayu, who is in the late 10th level of the heavenly god and has angel wings, is still not qualified to ask him for advice? Is that what you mean? Many ancestors frowned, and even the Wangxiang sword ancestor felt that Yang Xiaoshan was a little arrogant. You must know that young Master Kayanayu is not an ordinary heavenly god of the 10th level, but an unparalleled sword genius who has cultivated 12 kinds of the strongest sword intent. He is the most talented genius in swordsmanship in the history of the Light God clan. Before Master Kyanayu, no one in the Light God clan had ever cultivated 12 kinds of the strongest sword intent. Moreover, Master Kyanayu not only cultivated 12 kinds of the strongest sword intent, but also cultivated all 12 kinds of the strongest sword intent to the state of perfection. With Master Kyanayu's combat power, even many peak late stage 10th level gods are not his opponents. Even many peak late stage 10th level gods cannot even take one of his moves. But such an existence, this Yang Xiaoshan actually said that he was not qualified to ask him for advice. Doesn't that mean that only half-step gods are qualified to ask him for advice? Master Kyanayu heard this and was also very angry. I'm not qualified to ask for advice? But. At this point, he broke through the air and swung the sword in his hand towards Yang Xiaoshan. Yang Xiaoshan, I don't believe you really cultivated 13 kinds of the strongest sword intent. The sword in his hand surged with sword energy, and at this moment, he urged all the sword intent he cultivated. 1, 2, 3. A total of 12, and all of them are the strongest sword intent. All of them are in the state of perfection. A terrifying sword force shocked everyone in the hall. You should know that when Yang Xiaoshan defeated Guzi, the first sword god of the Time continent, he only used 10 kinds of the strongest sword intent of the Great Perfection Realm. Now, young Master Kyanayu has 12 kinds of the strongest sword intent of the Perfection Realm, so you can imagine how strong his sword power is. You are worthy of being the first sword genius in the history of the Light God clan. Wang Xiang Sword Ancestor saw it, and couldn't help but praise. Just when young Master Kyanayu's sword blasted in front of Yang Xiaoshan, Yang Xiaoshan didn't use the sword, but used his finger instead of the sword, and blasted it out with one finger. When he pointed the sword to blast, the sword intent was activated. First, the sword intent of heaven and earth burst out with a dazzling golden light. Golden strongest sword intent. This is a pinnacle. The pinnacle. The eyes of the ancestors in the hall were wide open, full of shock. It is very difficult to cultivate the sword intent to the perfect state. But in every era of the Kanglan continent, there will occasionally be one or two such sword geniuses. And the pinnacle of sword intent is simply untraceable. In the countless years of Kanglan continent, no sword genius has ever cultivated the sword intent of the pinnacle. Even the Wang Xiang sword ancestor stood up in shock. In the eyes of everyone in shock, another dazzling golden sword intent burst out, which was the infinite sword intent. Seeing that it was the strongest sword intent of the pinnacle, everyone's eyes widened again. Then, there was the third dazzling golden sword intent, the Tailong sword intent. In the blink of an eye, Yang Xiaoshan activated 13 kinds of the strongest sword intent of the pinnacle. Seeing that Yang Xiaoshan actually cultivated 13 kinds of the strongest sword intent, and all of them were at the pinnacle, Nangang Chun, the master of the Juking Palace who had teased Yang Xiaoshan, was shocked. 13 kinds of the strongest sword intent of the pinnacle, this is simply. Luo Huaming was so excited that his hands were shaking. He finally knew why Yang Xiaoshan could comprehend 40 sword tablets in one fell swoop. He finally understood why Yang Xiaoshan could comprehend the 100 sword tablets set up by his master. It turned out to be 13 kinds of the strongest sword intents that reached the pinnacle. Just when everyone thought it was over, suddenly, another golden sword intent force shot out from Yang Xiaoshan's finger. 14 kinds. Many sword masters were so scared that they fell to the ground. It turned out to be 14 kinds of the strongest sword intents that reached the pinnacle, not 13 kinds. Nangang Chun was stunned. Wang Xiang sword ancestor, Wang Xiang goddess, Luo Huaming, everyone was stunned. Kyanayu Gangzi, who came to Yang Xiaoshan, was horrified and his heart trembled. His terrifying sword power just now seemed so weak in front of Yang Xiaoshan's sword power. But Yang Xiaoshan's 14 kinds of the strongest sword intents, unstoppable, directly blasted his sword intent. Then everyone saw that Kyanayu Gangzi was like a kite with a broken string and fell heavily on the ground outside the hall. Chapter 791 Night No Demon. Bang! Young Master Kyanayu seemed to hit everyone's heart, especially the God King Huanhe of the Light Clan, and others turned pale. The hall was silent again. Only the weak sound of young Master Kyanayu falling to the ground was heard. Everyone stared at Yang Xiaoshan's golden finger in a daze. It was as if Yang Zai Ocean's golden finger was a peerless treasure. Wang Xiang Sword Ancestor also looked at Yang Zai Ocean's golden finger and murmured, peerless and invincible. 13 kinds of the strongest sword intent at the pinnacle are already peerless and unparalleled, and 14 kinds are more than peerless and invincible. Wang Xiang Goddess was trembling all over when she looked at Yang Zai Ocean's golden finger, and her heart was beating violently. If she was hit by this finger, who could withstand it? It seems that only the half-step God Lord is qualified to challenge. An old ancestor of the sword took a deep breath and said with difficulty. Everyone's heart was shaking wildly. Earlier Yang Zai Ocean said that young Master Qianyu, who was in the late 10th level of Heavenly God, was still not qualified to challenge him. Everyone thought Yang Zai Ocean was arrogant, but now they found that Yang Zai Ocean was not arrogant. Even young Master Qianyu, who was in the late 10th level of Heavenly God, was not his opponent. Then, the strong man at the peak of the late 10th level of Heavenly God was probably not qualified to challenge him. Only the half-step God Lord was qualified. Seeing that no one had come out to challenge Yang Zai Ocean for a long time, the Lord of Wang Xiang Palace could only say, is there anyone who wants to come out and fight with the Son of Heaven? If not, the first place in the Heavenly God group will go to the Son of Heaven. Everyone was silent. No one stood up again. After all, even young Master Qianyu, who was in the late 10th level of Heavenly God, was not Yang Zai Ocean's opponent. Who else in the Heavenly God realm could fight with Yang Zai Ocean? Just when everyone thought that Yang Zai Ocean would win the first place in the God group, suddenly, an arrogant voice sounded outside the hall. 14 kinds of sword intents that have reached the pinnacle. I didn't expect that such a peerless sword genius would appear in Kanglan continent. Everyone looked over and saw a large group of masters walking in from outside the hall. Seeing the arrival of the people, Wang Xiang Sword Ancestor and everyone's faces changed. The arrival was not a master of Kanglan continent, but Shi Mao, the ancestor of the Demon Sea Palace, the first force in the Black Demon continent. The Black Demon continent is adjacent to the Kanglan continent, but the relationship with the Kanglan continent is not good. Shi Mao is the first master of the Black Demon continent. Shi Mao, what are you doing here? Wang Xiang Sword Ancestor stood up suddenly and stared at Shi Mao coldly. This is our Kanglan continent sword conference. You are not welcome. Everyone stared at Shi Mao and his group with hatred. Shi Mao, however, looked calm as usual. He walked in with everyone and said with a smile, since it is a sword competition, it is too boring and tedious for only people from your Kanglan continent to participate. At this point, he pointed to a young man behind him and said, this is my disciple Yibu Mo. Then he said to Yang Zai Ocean, little guy, do you dare to compete with my disciple? No matter life or death. If you can beat my disciple, I will give you 4 divine spiritual veins, 40 origin auras, and 4 mouthfuls of Hunyuan heavenly tribulation thunder water. An old ancestor of swordsmanship looked at Shi Mao's disciple in surprise. Yibu Mo. The demon of no demon. What? He is the demon of no demon. Half-step God Lord Peak. Known as the #1 person under the God Lord of the Black Demon continent. In the hall, many masters of the Kanglan continent were shocked. Luo who remained beside Yang Zai Ocean was also shocked. This demon of no demon was very famous even in the Kanglan continent, not because of his amazing strength, but because of his terrifying talent. In front of the God Lord, no matter how strong the half-step God Lord is, he is still an ant. A single finger of the God Lord can crush 100 half-step God Lords. But this Yibu Mo, with the strength of a half-step God Lord, killed a God Lord of the first level. Not defeated, but killed. Defeating a God Lord with the strength of a half-step God Lord is already a shocking event on the continent, not to mention killing a God Lord. Because of this, the reputation of this Yibu Mo has spread to the surrounding continents. Oh, you beat your disciple. 4 divine spirit veins, 40 origin auras and 4 mouthfuls of Hunyuan Ching thunder water? Yang Zai Ocean glanced at the Yibu Mo and said. Shi Mao saw that Yang Zai Ocean was moved and laughed. Not bad. How about it? What if I lose? Yang Zai Ocean's face was normal. Shi Mao smiled and said, if you lose, just put your life on this. Okay. Yang Zai Ocean put down the wine glass. Junior brother, Luo Huaming heard this and couldn't help but look anxious. Absolutely not. That Yibuemo is not as simple as you think. His fighting power is extremely terrifying. When the masters of Duking Palace, Blood Sword Sect, and Bright God Clan heard that Yangzai Ocean actually agreed, they all gloated. Many masters of Kanglan continent frowned, and many shook their heads. Yangzai Ocean practiced 14 kinds of the strongest sword intents at the pinnacle of the realm, which was indeed a monster, but the realm was too different from Yibuemo. For this battle, almost no one was optimistic about Yangzai Ocean. If it was an ordinary half-step godlord, Yangzai Ocean might still have a chance to win, but Yibuemo was not an ordinary half-step godlord, but an existence with equally terrifying talent and fighting power, who could kill a strong man in the godlord realm. Wang Xiang Sword Ancestor also frowned and sighed in his heart. Don't worry, senior brother. Yangzai Ocean said to Luo Huaming, then stood up and landed in the center of the hall. At this time, Yibuemo also walked out from behind Chi Mao. He stared at Yangzai Ocean coldly, and the magic energy in his body stretched out. The blood-red magic energy turned into a blood-colored magic sea. Above the magic sea, blood demons condensed one after another. Blood demon magic skill. Seeing the blood-colored magic sea around Yibuemo, many masters of Kanglan continent were shocked. Blood demon magic skill is one of the 10 great magic skills of Black Demon continent. It is said that, if one cultivates to 100 blood demons, he will be invincible in the same realm. In the same realm, almost no one can defeat him with one move. However, the blood demons cultivated by Yibuemo reached a total of 200. Seeing that Yibuemo actually cultivated the blood demon magic skill to produce 200 blood demons, Luo Huaming and the ancestor of Tangshan Divine Sect changed their faces. 100 blood demons are already invincible in the same realm, but what about 200 blood demons? How strong will Yibuemo's combat power be? This Yangzai Ocean is ignorant of the depths of heaven and earth. He dared to challenge Yibuemo. It seems that he will die. The God King of the Illusion Sea of the Light Clan sneered. Suddenly, Yibuemo's blood demon surged all over his body, and he suddenly slapped Yangzai Ocean with a palm. The blood energy of the 200 blood demons behind him surged into the sky, blocking the sun. The entire hall seemed to be submerged in the sea of blood. A huge blood-colored demon palm slammed in front of Yangzai Ocean. Just when everyone thought that Yangzai Ocean was going to be knocked away, suddenly, Yangzai Ocean's body was full of lightning, and one after another mutated divine veins were activated. The power of 1296 mutated lightning divine veins turned into one after another lightning pillar that soared into the sky. Yangzai Ocean slapped out with one palm. The power of all the mutated divine veins and the power of the 14 kinds of sword intents at the pinnacle of creation roared out. Chapter 792, Challenging the First Level of Divine Lord? This is simply crazy. Boom. Yangzai Ocean's golden palm power instantly blasted through the opponent's bloody palm, and then, with a devastating force, he continued to blast one blood demon after another. 200 blood demons disappeared in an instant. Yangzai Ocean's golden palm power blasted through the opponent's blood sea. The blood sea exploded. The blood waves rushed to the sky. Yibuemo was horrified and roared. His blood and energy surged. He madly blasted towards Yangzai Ocean's golden palm power, but it was useless. He was instantly blasted away by Yangzai Ocean's golden palm power and smashed out of the hall. Bang! He fell outside the hall. His whole body of divine armor exploded. He vomited blood, and his 7 orifices were bleeding. His entire chest was blasted down, and no blood demon magic was useful. Everyone looked at Yangzai Ocean with a look of horror. 1296 divine veins. Yangzai Ocean opened up all the divine veins, and all of them were mutated divine veins. Is this true? An old ancestor's eyes widened to the maximum, his face full of disbelief. He didn't believe that there was anyone in the world who could open up all the divine veins. And all of them were mutated divine veins. How monstrous is this? Even the Wangxiang Palace Master gasped. He also came from the divine realm, so of course he knew how difficult it was to open up all the divine veins. Back then, he wanted to open up 800 divine veins but couldn't. Everyone was shocked by Yangzai Ocean's 1296 mutated divine veins. Even Chi Mao, the #1 master of the Black Demon continent, changed his expression. As the #1 master of the Black Demon continent, he had traveled all over the surrounding continents, but he had never seen such a monstrous talent. He looked at Yang Xiaoshan with a murderous look in his eyes, which was hard to hide, and it was full of murderous intent. Your disciple lost. Yang Xiaoshan ignored Shi Mao's murderous intent and spoke. Shi Mao's face darkened, and he glanced at his disciple who was covered in blood. Just as he was about to give Yang Xiaoshan 4 divine spiritual veins, 40 origin auras, and 4 mouthfuls of Hunio and Xianji thunder water, suddenly, his disciple Yi Bumo stood up shakily. I didn't lose. Yi Bumo's voice seemed to float from hell, his eyes were bloodshot, and the blood demon aura in his body was rolling again. However, Yang Xiaoshan opened his palm, and made a seal, and the power of the 14 strongest sword intentions condensed into an amazing sword column, which instantly blasted towards Yi Bumo. Yi Bumo roared, and his whole body of divine power urged him to slash out with the magic knife in his hand, and the magic blade aura burst out. However, Yang Xiaoshan's sword column blasted through his magic blade aura again, and blasted him away fiercely. This time, Yi Bumo was blasted and thrown into the air, directly passing through the many palaces, and smashed out of the Wangxiang Palace, and it was unknown whether he was alive or dead. Shi Mao's face twitched when he saw this. Originally, he was still expecting a miracle to happen, but in the blink of an eye, the miracle was completely cut off. Finally, he threw the space artifact containing 4 divine veins, 40 origin auras and 4 mouthfuls of Hunio and heavenly tribulation thunder water to Yang Xiaoshan. Yang Xiaoshan took the space artifact, opened it and made sure that all the veins, origin auras and Hunio and heavenly tribulation thunder water were fine. He suddenly said to Shi Mao, you still have divine veins, origin auras and Hunio and heavenly tribulation thunder water? Just when Shi Mao was puzzled, Yang Xiaoshan said, how about we make another bet? You send a first level god lord to spar with me for a few moves. If I lose, these 4 divine veins, 40 origin auras and 4 mouthfuls of Hunio and heavenly tribulation thunder water will be given to you. If your people lose, you give me 8 divine veins, 80 origin auras and 8 mouthfuls of Hunio and heavenly tribulation thunder water. When Yang Xiaoshan said this, everyone in the hall was in an uproar. What? He wants to challenge a first level god lord? He is crazy. Everyone thought Yang Xiaoshan was crazy. Challenging a first level god lord with a first level heavenly god. Even the Lord of Azure Dragon did not dare to play like this. No, even the Lord of Heaven and Earth did not dare to play like this. Luo Huaming also felt his scalp burst. When Shi Mao heard this, he was ecstatic, fearing that Yang Xiaoshan would regret it, and blurted out, okay. If we lose, I will give you 8 divine veins, 80 origin auras and 8 mouthfuls of Hunio and heavenly tribulation thunder water. After that, he took out a space artifact, and then opened the space artifact, which happened to contain 8 divine veins, 80 origin auras and 8 mouthfuls of Hunio and heavenly tribulation thunder water. In order to show fairness, Shi Mao put the space artifact aside, and said to a master behind him, Zulu, come out and exchange a few moves with this Tangshan godson. Yes, sir. A master behind him came out, and did not hide his aura, and the aura of the peak of the first late stage of the Lord of God was completely released. The peak of the first late stage of the Lord of God. Seeing that Shi Mao actually sent a peak of the first late stage of the Lord of God to exchange with Yang Xiaoshan, everyone couldn't help but secretly say that he was shameless. This is unfair. The goddess of all aspects could not help but say angrily. Shi Mao rolled his eyelids and laughed. Unfair? He only said it was the first level of the Lord God, but he didn't say that I couldn't send a peak level of the late first level of the Lord God. At this point, he secretly winked at Zulu. Suddenly, Zulu's whole body glowed with divine light, and a huge godhead flew out. When this huge godhead flew out, the devilish energy rolled, the hall shook, and fine cracks appeared on the floor of the hall. Devil prison godhead. Seeing Zulu's godhead, everyone was shocked. The devil prison godhead. This is the top godhead of the best quality. At this moment, Zulu's whole body glowed with divine light again, and another huge godhead flew out. The power of this godhead was not weaker than the previous devil prison godhead. It was also the top godhead of the best quality. 2 top godheads of the best quality. Everyone was shocked. Seeing that the Zulu sent by Shima actually had 2 top godheads of the best quality, Luohuaming, who had originally held a glimmer of hope, felt his heart sink completely. One Xiang Jianzu and the others also frowned. Yang Ocean, kneel down. Zulu activated the power of the 2 divine powers and suddenly slapped Yang Ocean in the air. The space shook violently, and the terrifying power swept across the world, and even many second-level godlords were shocked and retreated. Little junior brother, be careful. Luohuaming felt the power of Zulu's 2 divine powers. His face changed, and he blurted out, looking at the palm power condensed by Zulu's 2 divine powers. Yang Ocean's face was normal, his whole body was full of Hunio and Shen Guang, and the 14th Hunio and Xianming divine body was activated. A breath as powerful as hell burst out from Yang Ocean's body. What kind of divine body is this? Many strong men felt a terrifying aura on Yang Ocean and were shocked. Destiny? Is it the Destiny divine body? What? The Destiny divine body? Did he cultivate 15 days of destiny? Impossible. How could someone in the world cultivate 15 days of destiny? The hall was in an uproar. At this moment, the Hunio and Xianming in Yang Ocean's body flew out. The 12,960 Li Hunio and destiny hung in the sky, shaking the heavens. Generally, the best godhood is 1 Li in radius, and the best top godhood is 9 Li in radius. Zulu's 2 godhoods are both top godhoods, which were big enough in the eyes of everyone before, but now compared with Yang Ocean's Hunio and destiny, they are just 2 small iron balls. 4th update in the evening. Chapter 793. I'm not talented, but I want to give it a try. Seeing Yang Ocean's Hunio and destiny, everyone was dumbfounded. Such a huge destiny. What kind of destiny is this? Not to mention Luohuaming and a group of masters, even Wang Xiang Jianzu and Shimao saw such a huge destiny for the first time. Is there such a huge destiny in the world? This is Hunio and destiny. There is only Hunio in the world that is stronger and greater than the 9-fold destiny. An extremely ancient sword ancestor trembled. Hunio, a destiny stronger and greater than the 9-fold destiny. Everyone in the hall was shocked. Many of the people in the hall were leaders of a religion, but it was the first time they heard of Hunio and destiny. It's Hunio and destiny. There really is Hunio and destiny in the world. Wang Xiang Jianzu looked at the Hunio and destiny hanging in the sky, which was as big as the Milky Way, with excitement. When everyone was shocked, then Yang Ocean's whole body was shining, and the 2nd Hunio and destiny flew out, followed by the 3rd, 4th, 5th. In the blink of an eye, 15 Hunio and destinies were hanging in the sky. 15 Hunio and destinies were born, shining on the eternal time and space of Kanglan continent. Endless Hunio and power fell from the 15th Hunio and destiny. The heaven and earth shook, and the power of Hunwu filled the 100,000 palaces of Wang Xiang Palace. 15th Hunio and destiny. Everyone looked at the 15th Hunio and destiny in the sky, and their minds were blank. Then, the divine light on Yang Ocean's body surged again, and the 14th Hangmeng divine body and the 15th eternal divine body were activated. The Hangmeng divine power evolved into a Hangmeng world. Time condensed into the river of time. Hangmeng power. This is the Hangmeng divine body. Time is eternal. This is the eternal divine body. The Hangmeng divine body and the eternal divine body that have never appeared in the ages. Seeing Yang Ocean's Hangmeng divine body and the eternal divine body, Wang Xiang sword ancestor and everyone was shocked, and everyone was extremely shocked. No matter who saw Yang Ocean's 3 divine bodies and Hunio and destiny, they could not suppress the shock and excitement in their hearts. In the 3 divine lights, the god of destiny, the god of Hangmeng, and the god of time gathered behind Yang Ocean. Yang Ocean suddenly punched out. Suddenly, fate, primordial, time, all the divine veins and all the power of Hunio and destiny roared out. The palm power of Zulu's 2 divine powers was blasted out in an instant. Yang Ocean's fist force was invincible, blasting through the heavy demonic energy, and blasting through the opponent's chest. Even if Zulu mobilized all the power of the Godlord realm, even if he wore the Godlord level divine armor, it was useless. Zulu was blasted into the air by Yang Ocean's fist force, and like the previous Yibu Mo, he was blasted across the god palaces and smashed outside the Wang Xiang god palace. Bang! Even the people in the hall could still hear the loud sound of Zulu smashing outside the god palace. The first level of the god of heaven blasted away the first level of the god lord. Everyone looked at this unforgettable scene, and their hearts could not calm down for a long time. Nangang-chun, who had mocked Yang Xiaoshan before, felt as if something was stuck in his throat. Yang Xiaoshan looked over and saw that everyone in the hall had left their seats, and some ancestors even stood there on one foot. The goddess of the myriad aspects stared at him with an unbending gaze. Yang Xiaoshan's eyes fell on Shimao. You are good looking but useless, and you lost again. Good looking but useless. Lost again. Yang Xiaoshan's words hit Shimao's heart like a giant hammer. Shimao's face was ugly, but he couldn't suppress the shock in his heart. In the end, under the gaze of everyone, he gave Yang Xiaoshan a space artifact containing 8 divine spirit veins, 80 origin auras and 8 mouthfuls of Hunyuan heavenly tribulation thunder water. Looking at the divine spirit veins, origin auras and Hunyuan heavenly tribulation thunder water in his hand, Yang Xiaoshan couldn't hide his joy. I didn't expect that I could easily earn 12 divine spirit veins, 120 origin auras and 12 mouthfuls of Hunyuan heavenly tribulation thunder water at this sword competition. Even if he couldn't complete the sword formation of the myriad aspects sword ancestor, his charred tree roots could be resurrected. And there were so many divine spirit veins, enough for him to spend some time. However, this little bit of origin energy and Hunyuan heavenly tribulation thunder water was still far from enough for him. Yang Xiaoshan's eyes fell on Shimao again. You still have the god grade spiritual veins, origin energy and Hunyuan heavenly tribulation thunder water? When everyone heard Yang Xiaoshan's words, their faces suddenly became strange. Let's make another bet. You send the second level god lord to spar with me for a few moves. If I lose, I will give you back these 12 god grade spiritual veins, 120 origin energy and 12 mouthfuls of Hunyuan heavenly tribulation thunder water. Yang Xiaoshan looked at Shimao and said, if you lose, you have to lose double to me. Everyone's heart was shocked, and they looked at Yang Xiaoshan in disbelief. Yang Xiaoshan actually wanted to challenge the second level god lord? This is simply unbelievable. No one could think of how to describe their feelings at the moment. Shimao's face twitched. He stared at Yang Xiaoshan, but finally shook his head. It's not that he didn't want to gamble again, but he only had 12 god grade spiritual veins, 120 origin energy and 12 mouthfuls of Hunyuan heavenly tribulation thunder water, all of which had been lost to Yang Xiaoshan. Even if he was asked to take out a strand of origin energy now, he couldn't do it. The mountains don't change, the water changes. We'll see each other later. Shimao looked at Yang Xiaoshan. Next year, our Black Demon Continent sword competition will also welcome the Son of God to participate. By then, if the Son of God can defeat my second level subordinates of the Lord of God, I will give you 24 divine veins, 240 origin energy and 24 mouthfuls of mixed primordial heavenly tribulation thunder water. I just don't know if the Son of God dares to come then. After saying that, Shimao left with a group of masters from the Black Demon Continent. Next year, will the Black Demon Continent also hold a sword competition? Yang Xiaoshan looked at Shimao's leaving figure. After Shimao and the masters from the Black Demon Continent left, the masters from the Kanglan Continent looked at Yang Xiaoshan, all with complicated expressions. The palace master of the Wangxiang Palace clasped his fists to Yang Xiaoshan and said, the son of God of Tangshan has unparalleled talent. It is my Kanglang's luck. It is my Kanglang's luck. Many sword ancestors at the scene were excited and bowed to Yang Xiaoshan. Who else wants to spar with the son of God Tangshan? The lord of Wangxiang Palace turned to the crowd and said, if not, the first place in the heavenly god group of this sword competition will go to the son of God Tangshan. This time, no one dared to speak. Even the first level god lord was no match for Yang Xiaoshan with one punch, so which heavenly god realm dared to spar with Yang Xiaoshan now? In the end, Yang Xiaoshan won the first place in the heavenly god group of this sword competition, and once again obtained 2 divine spirit veins, 20 origin auras, and 2 mouthfuls of Hunyuan heavenly tribulation thunder water. Then it was the god lord realm sparring. During the God Lord realm sparring, Yang Xiaoshan did not intervene, but watched carefully, remembering the unique skills and combat power of all the masters present. After the God Lord realm sparring, the sword competition ended, and Yang Xiaoshan did not leave, but came to the front of the Wangxiang sword ancestor. I heard from my senior brother that the senior has an incomplete sword formation and wants to find someone to complete it, right? I'm not talented, but I want to give it a try. Chapter 794, Resurrection of the Charred Tree Roots. Upon hearing this, Wanxiang Jianzhu looked at Yang Xiaoshan in astonishment. He obviously did not expect Yang Xiaoshan to complete the incomplete sword formation he had obtained. Okay, son of Tangshan, please. Wanxiang Jianzhu politely invited Yang Xiaoshan and others into the inner hall of Wanxiang Palace. However, even he could not complete the sword formation, so he did not have any hope for Yang Xiaoshan. Then, Wanxiang Jianzhu took out the incomplete sword formation he had obtained and gave it to Yang Xiaoshan. This incomplete sword formation was carved on a tree stump, and the tree stump exuded the breath of time and antiquity. The sword runes on the tree stump were extremely profound, but Yang Xiaoshan saw some clues after taking a look. Senior, do you have a secret room? Yang Xiaoshan asked Wanxiang Jianzhu. I want a secret room. Wanxiang Jianzhu immediately arranged a secret room for Yang Xiaoshan and ordered that no one should approach the secret room or disturb Yang Xiaoshan. After Yang Xiaoshan arrived at the secret room, he took out the incomplete sword formation and began to study it carefully. He had seen this incomplete sword formation in the formation secret book left by the Lord of Heaven and Earth. He could complete the sword formation in 3 days at most. While Yang Xiaoshan was studying the incomplete sword formation, the master of Wangxiang Palace and Wangxiang Sword Ancestor and other masters of Wangxiang Palace gathered in a hall to discuss Yang Xiaoshan's affairs. 14 extremely powerful sword intentions, and all of them have reached the pinnacle. 15 Hunio and Destiny, Time, Hunio and Destiny, and the 3 eternal divine bodies of Hangmeng. 1296 Mutant Thunder Attribute Divine Veins. In the hall, Wangxiang Sword Ancestor counted the terrifying talents that Yang Xiaoshan showed today one by one. Every time he counted one, everyone's heart trembled. I just don't know what kind of holy fruit he condensed. An old ancestor trembled. You know, Yang Xiaoshan's destiny is Unio and Destiny, so how can the holy fruit be simple? It can't be the Teichu holy fruit, another old ancestor said in a trembling voice. Wangxiang Jianzhu shook his head. In your cognition, Teichu Shenguo is the strongest Shenguo. In fact, there is a stronger Hangmeng Shenguo above Teichu. Hangmeng Shenguo. Everyone screamed. The hall was silent again. If Yang Xiaoshan is cultivating Hangmeng Shenguo, it would be too terrifying. After a long time, Wangxiang Palace Master exclaimed, I'm afraid his divine fruit is a divine godhead. Divine godhead. Everyone breathed hard. In the ancient times, only the Lord of Heaven and Earth, the Lord of Time, the Lord of Darkness, and the Hanghuang Emperor could condense it. And in the past million years, there has been only one person in Kanglang continent who can condense a divine godhead, and that is Hangfeng. If Yang Xiaoshan is cultivating a divine godhead, then Tangshan Shinjiao is destined to be the supreme overlord of the divine realm in the future. Wangxiang Palace Master said in a deep voice. It is already very remarkable for a sect to produce a divine godhead, and Tangshan Shinjiao first produced Hangfeng, and now it is Yang Xiaoshan. Wanxiang Jianzhu opened his mouth, wanting to say that the godhood condensed by Yang Xiaoshan might be beyond the god-grade chaos godhood, but in the end he did not say what he thought in his heart. After all, the chaos godhood was earth-shattering. If it came out, it would be too scary. At that time, it would shock all the heavens and the world. Just when Wanxiang Jianzhu and others were talking about Yang Xiaoshan, the strong men from Kanglang continent and Heiemo continent were also talking about Yang Xiaoshan. The news that Yang Xiaoshan defeated the ruthless son of God Chen Jinting, Wang Shu, Kan Yu Gangzi, Yibu Mo, and Zulu spread as the strong men from all sides left. In Kanglang continent and Heiemo continent, there were huge waves of shock. When the outside world was in an uproar, Yang Xiaoshan was in the secret room, waving his hands constantly, condensing one sword array rune after another, and then forming one rune after another, and merging them into the tree stump. This incomplete sword array had a total of 16 holes missing. It was simply in ruins. However, as Yang Zai Ocean continued to repair the gaps in the sword formation, the tree stump gradually emitted light, like a dead tree coming back to life. Finally, when Yang Zai Ocean completed the last gap, the tree stump burst into a strong light, and a surge of vitality spread out from the tree stump. Yang Zai Ocean looked at the tree stump in front of him, nodded secretly, and studied it carefully. After the study found no more problems, he came out of the secret room, and went to see Wang Xiang's sword ancestor. At this time, it had only been 2 days since Yang Zai Ocean entered the secret room. Wang Xiang's sword ancestor looked at the tree stump handed back by Yang Zai Ocean in disbelief, and checked the sword formation inside, with a look of shock on his face. "You completed the sword formation?" Yang Zai Ocean smiled at Wang Xiang's sword ancestor and said, "Fortunately, I have fulfilled my mission." Wang Xiang's sword ancestor still didn't believe it, and urged the sword formation inside. Suddenly, amazing sword energy burst out, and various sword energy emerged one after another. Wang Xiang's sword ancestor was surprised and happy. He looked at Yang Zai Ocean, unable to hide his amazement and admiration, and smiled. "Young friend Yang, you are really young." He even changed the way he addressed Yang Zai Ocean. Afterwards, he gave Yang Zai Ocean all the 100 origin key and 10 mouthfuls of Hunyuan Heavenly Tribulation Thunder Water that he had promised earlier, and cordially invited Yang Zai Ocean to stay in the Wang Xiang Palace. But Yang Zai Ocean still declined. He was now in a hurry to return to the Tangshan divine religion, to retreat and refine the origin key he had obtained. Moreover, he had not swallowed and refined the Time God Pill and the Tai God Pill he had obtained in the Tai Swordmaster's cave. He planned to refine the Time God Pill and the Tai God Pill together this time and break through the second level of the Heavenly God in one fell swoop. Wang Xiang's Swordmaster was disappointed to see that Yang Zai Ocean was in a hurry to return to the Tangshan divine religion, but he had no choice but to invite Yang Zai Ocean to come to the Wang Xiang Palace next time. So, Yang Zai Ocean and his senior brother Luo Huaming and others began to set off to return to the Tangshan divine religion. On the way, Luo Huaming looked at Yang Zai Ocean, and he was naturally full of emotion. He had something to say, but didn't know where to start. Although the sword competition has ended, he still feels like he is in a dream. Originally, he brought Yang Zai Ocean to participate in the sword competition this time, to let Yang Zai Ocean gain some experience, but who would have thought that Yang Zai Ocean would let him and all the masters of Kanglan continent gain some experience. Moreover, Yang Zai Ocean actually completed the incomplete sword formation of Wang Xiang's sword ancestor. I didn't expect that the formation of my junior brother is also unparalleled. Luo Huaming looked at Yang Zai Ocean and sighed. Yang Zai Ocean shook his head and said, "I was lucky enough to see the incomplete sword formation in a formation secret book, so I know how to complete the incomplete sword formation." "Is that true?" Luo Huaming was puzzled. Back to Tangshan Divine Sect, Yang Zai Ocean finally returned to his own mountain with a lot of disciples of Tangshan Divine Sect welcoming him, and then began to take out a mouthful of Hunyuan Ing Thunder Water and pour it on the charred tree root. As the Hunyuan Ing Thunder Water was poured, finally, the last piece of charred bark of the charred tree root fell off. When the last piece of charred bark fell off, the tree roots began to be filled with vitality and green light, and the vitality became stronger and stronger. A breath of primordial aura emanated from the inside of the tree roots. What is this? Looking at the resurrected tree roots, Yang Zai Ocean was surprised. Chapter 795 Breakthrough. Hang Meng Divine Tree. Uncle Ding's surprised voice sounded. At this moment, it finally knew what kind of tree this charred root was from. It turned out to be the root of the Hang Meng Divine Tree. The Hang Meng Divine Tree can give birth to the Hang Meng Key. It may even produce the Hang Meng Divine Fruit. The Hang Meng Divine Fruit is a treasure of heaven and earth that is more precious than the Hang Meng Key. Yang Zai Ocean was also excited. As long as the Hang Meng Divine Tree grows up, he will no longer lack the Hang Meng Key or even the Hang Meng Divine Fruit in the future. With the Hang Meng Divine Fruit to practice, why should he worry about not being able to break through the 17th level of his Hang Meng Divine Body? Then why should he worry about his slow practice speed? Just when Yang Zai Ocean was about to take out another mouthful of Hunyuan Ing Thunder Water, to continue watering the roots of the Hangmeng divine tree. Uncle Ding said, the roots have been resurrected, and there is no need to waste Hunio and Shianji thunder water. Now you just need to give it 1 god pill every day, and it will continue to grow. Uncle Ding said. Yangshan pill is a pill for the cultivation of the heavenly god level, while Jiashan pill is a pill for the cultivation of the lord god level. The effect of Jiashan pill is far better than Yangshan pill. Then if it absorbs 1 Jiashan pill every day, how long will it take for it to produce the Hangmeng Qi and produce the Hangmeng divine fruit? Yang Xiaoshan asked. This is what he cares about most now. He urgently needs the Hangmeng Qi and the Hangmeng divine fruit to cultivate. A treasure of heaven and earth like the Hangmeng divine tree must grow to at least 1,000 feet before it can produce the Hangmeng Qi, and at least 10,000 feet before it can produce the Hangmeng divine fruit, said Uncle Ding. Only when it grows to more than 1,000 feet can the Hangmeng Qi be produced. Only when it grows to 10,000 feet can the Hangmeng divine fruit be produced. Yang Xiaoshan's heart sank. Sure enough, Uncle Ding continued, you can refine the 4 Tribulations Heaven Grade 9 Divine Pill now. If it absorbs 1 4 Tribulations Heaven Grade 9 Divine Pill every day, it will take at least 1,000 years to grow to more than 1,000 feet. Or 1,000 years. Yang Xiaoshan's eyes widened. By then, the daylily will be cold. Although Yang Xiaoshan expected that it would take a long time, he did not expect it to take so long. Uncle Ding said unhappily, or 1,000 years is still too little. Do you think that a treasure of heaven and earth like the Hangmeng divine tree can grow to 1,000 feet so easily? If you feed it the 3 Tribulations Heaven Grade 9 God Pill, it will take at least a few thousand years. If you feed it the 2 Tribulations Heaven Grade 9 God Pill, it may take tens of thousands of years. Hearing this, Yang Xiaoshan's heart moved. Uncle Ding, what you mean is that if I feed it the 5 Tribulations Heaven Grade 9 God Pill every day, then it will grow faster, and it may not take 1,000 years to give birth to the Hangmeng Qi. That's right. Uncle Ding nodded and said, if you feed it the 5 Tribulations Heaven Grade 9 God Pill every day, it will take about 500 years to give birth to the Hangmeng Qi. 500 years. Yang Xiaoshan smiled bitterly. It was still too long. He couldn't wait for 500 years. If it was the 6 Tribulations Heaven Grade 9 God Pill, it would take about 300 years. Uncle Ding said. If it's the 7 Tribulations Heaven Grade 9 God Pill, it will take 200 years. 8 Tribulations Heaven Grade 9 God Pill, it will take 100 years. 9 Tribulations Heaven Grade 9 God Pill, it will only take a few decades. 9 Tribulations Heaven Grade 9 God Pill. Yang Xiaoshan shook his head. He was refining the 9 God Pill by transcending realms, so he needed at least 10 kinds of divine fire to refine the 9 Tribulations Heaven Grade 9 God Pill. Divine fire is hard to find in the world. Where can he find 5 more kinds of divine fire? Moreover, with his current strength, he can't control 10 kinds of divine fire at all. With his current strength, he can only control 6 kinds of divine fire at most. 500 years. Thinking that even if he subdues another kind of divine fire, the Hangmeng divine tree will need another 500 years to give birth to the Hangmeng Qi. Yang Xiaoshan had a headache and then asked Master Ding if there was any other way. Other ways, there are, as long as you can find the innate Z soil. Use the innate Z soil to cultivate it. The Hangmeng divine tree can grow quickly. Master Ding said, the more innate Z soil you find, the faster it grows. Innate Z soil? Yang Xiaoshan's eyes lit up. Don't be happy yet. Xianshan Zirang is a thing from the beginning of the world. It is rarer and harder to find than Hunio and Xianji Lishu. Uncle Ding said, you want to find it. It's difficult. Yang Xiaoshan was immediately poured with a basin of cold water. However, without Xianshan Zirang, if you water it with a mouthful of Hunio and Xianji Lishu every day, the growth rate of Hangmeng Shenshu will also be accelerated. Uncle Ding said. Yang Xiaoshan was depressed. It seems that it is not easy to make Hangmeng Shenshu grow. Then, he absorbed a 4 Tribulation Heaven Grade 9 God Pill into the roots of Hangmeng Shenshu. Sure enough, the roots of Hangmeng Shenshu began to glow and began to extend and grow little by little. Yang Xiaoshan planted the roots on the spiritual soil. At the beginning, he found the flowers of the other shore in the valley of the Lord of Time and collected the spiritual soil for planting the flowers of the other shore. These spiritual soils were the spiritual soils for planting the flowers of the other shore. Although these spiritual soils are far inferior to Xianshan Zirong, they can also promote the growth of Hongmeng Shenshu. Yang Xiaoshan did not retreat, but came to see his senior brother Luo Huaming, and asked about the Xianshan Zirong and the divine fire. Luo Huaming did not know about the Xianshan Zirong, but when it came to the divine fire, he said, many people have seen the sun and moon divine fire in the Black Demon continent, but I don't know if the sun and moon divine fire still exists. The sun and moon divine fire is the 4th ranked divine fire. Yang Xiaoshan was delighted when he heard this. I wonder if senior brother knows where the sun and moon divine fire appeared in the Black Demon continent. Many people say that they have seen the sun and moon divine fire appear in the sun and moon kingdom of the Black Demon continent. Luo Huaming said, however, there are many restrictions in the sun and moon kingdom, and even the Lord God will die if he is not careful. And even if we find the sun and moon divine fire, it will be difficult to subdue it. Yang Xiaoshan nodded, and then asked about the sword formation that gave birth to the sword domain. Luo Huaming hesitated for a moment and said, you can go to the sword ice field to have a look, but the sword ice field is an extremely cold place, and there are sword killing formations everywhere under the ice field, which is as dangerous as the sun and moon kingdom. You'd better not go. Then he said, Master should have gone to the sword ice field. Yang Xiaoshan was surprised that Master Han Feng also went to the sword ice field. Afterwards, Luo Huaming told Yang Xiaoshan some of the dangers of the sun and moon kingdom and the sword ice field. Thank you for telling me. Yang Xiaoshan wrote them down one by one. After returning to his own mountain, Yang Xiaoshan took out the time pill and swallowed it, while activating the ancient dragon art and the destiny art. Immediately, the time pill's medicinal power was like a raging flood, constantly flowing into his body. Under the operation of the two major techniques, the time pill's medicinal power continued to transform into his divine power. Yang Xiaoshan sensed the second barrier of the heavenly god, and activated his divine power to suddenly attack. Boom. The second barrier of the heavenly god was blasted open in one fell swoop. Yang Xiaoshan's whole body was filled with divine light. He successfully broke through the second level of the heavenly god. After breaking through the second level of the heavenly god, the medicinal power of the time pill continued to transform into his divine power, and Yang Xiaoshan's strength continued to steadily improve. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 796 Zulan Continent. After several months, Yang Xiaoshan finally completely refined the time pill. This time pill was indeed made of various rare divine medicines such as the flower of the other shore and the grass of time. The effect was better than he had expected. Originally, it would take him at least 100 years or even longer to cultivate to the late second level of the heavenly god. But now this time pill directly allowed him to break through to the late second level of the heavenly god. His eternal divine body, which had originally broken through to the 15th level, also broke through again and directly broke through to the late 15th level. Afterwards, Yang Xiaoshan took out the Tai pill and swallowed it to practice. Under the operation of the ancient dragon art and the divine art of destiny, the power of the Tai pill continued to transform into his divine power. Yang Xiaoshan's cultivation continued to improve. Soon, he broke through to the peak of the late second level of the heavenly god. After several months, he broke through again and reached the early third level of the heavenly god. When Yang Xiaoshan broke through to the middle third level of the heavenly god, the Tai pill was completely refined. However, there was still a long way to go to the late third level of the heavenly god. Tai divine pill. The elixir is not inferior to time divine pill, but the further you go, the harder it is to improve. In the end, two divine pills allowed Yang Xiaoshan to break through to the third mid-level of the heavenly god. Yang Xiaoshan began to refine the more than 200 origin auras he got at this sword competition. The origin aura is more difficult to refine than the primordial aura. He only refined 10 a day. After more than 20 days, he refined all the more than 200 origin auras. And Yang Xiaoshan's strength also broke through to the peak of the third mid-level of the heavenly god as expected. It is only half a step away from the third late level of the heavenly god. Just after Yang Zai Ocean refined all the origin auras, suddenly, his Supreme King Zuanwu martial soul vibrated violently. Yang Zai Ocean quickly summoned the Zuanwu martial soul. At a glance, he saw that his Zuanwu martial soul had finally completely merged with the Black Turtle Array spirit and had undergone an amazing transformation. His Zuanwu martial soul, which was originally as big as a continent, grew bigger again, and the mysterious veins on the tortoise shell became larger and more numerous, like dark array runes covering the entire tortoise shell. The entire tortoise shell was like a dark gem. The aura of the black tortoise was many times stronger than before. Level 16. Feeling the aura and power of the black tortoise after its transformation, Yang Zai Ocean was delighted. After completely integrating the Black Tortoise Array spirit, his Black Tortoise martial soul finally made another breakthrough and reached level 16. Even in the God realm, a level 16 martial soul is definitely the strongest martial soul. Not bad, not bad. It has broken through to level 16. Uncle Ding also smiled happily. If you find the prehistoric ancestral dragon array and devour the array spirit in it, your golden flame dark dragon martial soul may also break through to level 16. Yang Zai Ocean's heart moved, and he asked, Uncle Ding, is that prehistoric ancestral dragon array in the god realm? It is indeed in the god realm. Uncle Ding smiled. Where is it in the god realm? Yang Zai Ocean asked. Ancestor Dragon Continent. Uncle Ding said. Ancestor Dragon Continent. Yang Zai Ocean was shocked. The Ancestor Dragon Continent is one of the most powerful continents in the God Realm. It is also the origin of the Dragon Clan in the God Realm, where countless dragon clans live. It is just very far away from the Kanglan continent. It seems that he can't devour the spirit of the Great Desolation Ancestral Dragon Array now. Even if you can reach the Ancestral Dragon Continent now, you can't devour the spirit of the Great Desolation Ancestral Dragon Array with your current strength. Uncle Ding shook his head and said, the strength of that spirit is far beyond your ability to deal with now. The opponent can kill you 100 times with just one finger. Yang Zai Ocean sweated and completely gave up the idea of devouring the spirit of the Great Desolation Ancestral Dragon Array now. However, although you can't devour the spirit of the Great Desolation Ancestral Dragon Array now, you can devour the spirits of other Dragon Clan spirit arrays. Uncle Ding said, if the Golden Flame Dark Dragon Martial Spirit devours the spirits of other Dragon Clan spirit arrays, it can also be slightly improved. Aren't you going to enter the Sword Ice Field to find the sword array that gave birth to the Sword Realm? As far as I know, there are several Dragon Clan spirit arrays in the Sword Ice Field. After so many years, some of these Dragon Clan spirit arrays should have given birth to spirits. Yang Zai Ocean nodded. Before going to the Black Demon continent to find the Sun and Moon Divine Fire, he planned to cultivate the 15 sword intentions into the Sword Realm. Just as Yang Zai Ocean walked out of the palace, suddenly, a strong power fluctuation came from the other side of the mountain. In the sky, thunder and lightning flashed, and tribulation thunder formed. Yang Zai Ocean saw it and smiled. Senior Kinyu is finally going to break through. Kinyu has been stuck at the peak of the half-step Godlord for many years, and now he is finally going to break through the Godlord realm. Under Yang Zai Ocean's gaze, finally, the tribulation thunder fell. Kinyu's whole body was surging with thunder, turning into countless god thunders. Facing the tribulation thunder, there was a loud explosion. Kinyu is the king of heavenly beasts, and its godlord tribulation is also very powerful. It is the 6th level of tribulation thunder, but the 6 levels of tribulation thunder were eventually blown up by Kinyu one by one. Seeing Kinyu successfully pass the godlord tribulation, Yang Zai Ocean stepped forward to congratulate Kinyu. Kinyu seemed very excited and said with a smile, after years of hard training, I finally broke through the godlord. I finally broke through the godlord. Then he bowed to Yang Zai Ocean. If it weren't for my friend Yang, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to break through the godlord. He followed Yang Zai Ocean for these years and swallowed countless of Yang Zai Ocean's 4 tribulation heaven grade eternal god pills. If it weren't for this, he wouldn't be able to break through the godlord. Yang Zai Ocean helped Kinyu up and said with a smile, Senior Kinyu, you are too polite. I have been here for a long time thanks to your help. The two smiled. Afterwards, Yang Zai Ocean and Kinyu talked about entering the Ice Sword Plain. Knowing that the ice sword plane was full of terrifying formations, Kinyu pondered and said, I won't go with you. I will stay here to help you get information and help you build an intelligence organization. Although he broke through the Godlord realm, he also knew that with his current strength, he could no longer help Yangzai Ocean, so he planned to stay and help Yangzai Ocean build an intelligence organization. He knew that Yangzai Ocean had a lot to learn. Okay. Yangzai Ocean nodded. The next day, Yangzai Ocean said something to his senior brother Luo Huaming and left Tangshan sect. However, before leaving, he left 6 divine veins to Kinyu. After all, building an intelligence organization and recruiting people requires a lot of money. Luo Huaming knew that he could not dissuade Yangzai Ocean, so he could only ask Yangzai Ocean to be careful. Yangzai Ocean disappeared into the sky as everyone watched. On the way, when Yangzai Ocean passed the city, he spent another 100,000 divine spirit stones to purchase a large number of divine medicines for refining the 9 god pills, and refined the 9 god pills for the Hangmeng divine tree and the destiny divine tree to absorb. Now, the Hangmeng divine tree needs a 9 god pill every day, plus the destiny divine tree. Yangzai Ocean feels like he is spending money like water. It seems that I still have to make money. Yangzai Ocean said secretly. Although he still has a few divine spirit veins, they are only a few 100,000 divine spirit stones, which are not worth spending. Therefore, Yangzai Ocean decided to study the 11th level divine formation on the way. However, the 11th level divine formation is much more difficult to set up than the 10th level top level divine formation. Yangzai Ocean first studies the 11th level primary divine formation. Chapter 797 Dragon Sword Formation. Although the 11th level divine formation is more difficult to set up than the 10th level top level divine formation, when he came to the sword ice field, Yangzai Ocean still studied all the 11th level primary divine formations thoroughly. He successfully set up all the 11th level primary divine formations. Looking at the sword ice field in front of him reflecting the cold blue light, Yangzai Ocean put away the spaceship, broke through the air, and walked into the sword ice field in mid-air. The sword ice field, with no end in sight, was all white snow, no trees, no weeds. To be precise, all the trees and all the weeds were covered with white snow. Occasionally, you can see some broken swords standing on the ice field. Some of these swords have been broken into half. Some are only the sword body, and some broken swords are even hundreds of feet high. Even after countless years of wind and rain, the sword body of some broken swords still reflects the cold light that makes people palpitate. Before coming, Yangzai Ocean learned about the sword ice field. In ancient times, the sword ice field was the home of the Great Dragon God sect, a supreme sword sect. Later, the Great Dragon God sect offended Kynran sword ancestor for some unknown reason, and the entire sect was wiped out overnight. Over the countless years of the Kanglan continent, many sword ancestors have appeared, and Kynran sword ancestor is definitely one of the most dazzling existences among the many sword ancestors. Many of the broken swords here were the swords of the masters of the Great Dragon God sect in the past. Although these magic swords have been broken and destroyed by the supreme power, the sword bodies still retain amazing sword power. You can imagine how strong the sword masters of the Dragon God sect were in the past. However, even so, the entire Great Dragon God sect was still wiped out by Kynran sword ancestor overnight. Kynran sword ancestor. Yangzai Ocean read. According to legend, Kynran sword ancestor is also the master of the Lord of the Blue Dragon. It is even rumored among the people that after Kynran sword ancestor wiped out the Great Dragon God sect, he practiced in the Great Dragon God sect for decades before leaving. Therefore, many people think that Kynran sword ancestor has a cave in this sword ice field. Although there are sword formations everywhere under the sword ice field, many masters have continued to step into the sword ice field for millions of years. They not only want to find the treasure of the Great Dragon God sect, but also the cave where Kynran sword ancestor practiced. However, no one knows where the treasure of the Great Dragon God sect is buried underground, and the sword ice field is filled with the power of Kynran sword ancestor's sword. It is extremely difficult to find the treasure of the Great Dragon God sect. As for Kynran sword ancestor's cave, it is hidden in the deepest part of the sword ice field, and it is even more difficult to find. Yang Xiaoshan urged the power of the 17 heavenly emperor seals, sensing the sword formations under the sword ice field, and walked slowly forward. Some of these sword formations are already incomplete, and obviously have been destroyed by predecessors. Yang Xiaoshan flew to the depths of the sword ice field. As he approached the great dragon god Sek's former hall, the icy power of the sword ice field became stronger and stronger. Yang Xiaoshan, who had the 5 great divine fires, was not afraid of these icy powers. But the most troublesome thing was the power of the sword. As he approached the great dragon god Sek's former hall, the power of the sword became stronger and stronger. These sword powers were like waves, one after another, endless. Even if Yang Xiaoshan activated the 4 divine bodies, he was also bombarded with pain all over his body. These sword powers bombarded him, making a crisp clanging sound. Yang Xiaoshan activated the 4 divine bodies to the extreme. The river of time, the sea of destiny, the Hangmeng world, and the land of origin. The 4 great barriers surrounded his body. Even so, he still couldn't resist these sword powers. Yang Xiaoshan couldn't help but marvel at the strength of Cunning sword ancestor. These sword powers, after millions of years, are still so strong. You can imagine how terrifying they were back then. However, Yang Xiaoshan didn't need Yingli to protect him. He activated the 4 divine bodies to the extreme, gritted his teeth and supported himself, step by step forward. Finally, Yang Xiaoshan arrived at the great dragon god cult's main hall. Just as Yang Xiaoshan arrived at the great dragon god cult's main hall, a group of masters also appeared somewhere in the sword ice field. These masters were filled with dragon energy and dragon power. They were obviously masters of the dragon clan. The leader was a young man wearing a golden dragon robe. The young man looked at the direction of the great dragon god cult's main hall and said, "Everyone be careful. There is a sword killing formation arranged by Cunning sword ancestor in front." A dragon master behind him smiled and said, "Your Highness, don't worry. This time we have the sword armor given by our ancestors. We will definitely find the great dragon sword formation, the great dragon treasure and the cave of Cunning sword ancestor." The young man nodded, and then continued to fly forward with everyone. Yang Xiaoshan stayed in the great dragon god cult's main hall for a while, but did not find anything, and continued to fly forward. However, not long after flying forward, Yang Xiaoshan's 17 heavenly emperor seals sensed the amazing power of the sword formation in front. Yang Xiaoshan suddenly looked forward to the ground. Such amazing sword energy and dragon energy, then only? The great dragon sword formation. The great dragon sword formation is the great dragon god Sek's guarding divine formation, and it is also the great dragon god Sek's strongest divine formation. Yang Xiaoshan immediately came to the foot of the mountain in front. When he came here, the ice layer covering the ground was 100 meters thick, and it was condensed by extremely cold ice air, which was extremely difficult to break. Yang Xiaoshan wore the sun god armor, and used all his strength to activate the divine formation of the sun god armor. Suddenly, the sun god flame flowed through his body. Under the sun god flame and Yang Xiaoshan's 5 divine fires, the ice layer melted layer by layer. Yang Xiaoshan walked step by step deep into the ground. The deeper he went underground, the more terrifying the extremely cold ice air of the sword ice field was. However, under the sun god flame and the 5 divine fires, even the strongest extremely cold ice air was melted. After coming to 100 meters below, the ice layer finally disappeared. However, although the ice layer disappeared, it was a very thick layer of frozen soil, and the thickness of these frozen soils was far more than 100 meters. Yang Xiaoshan activated the power of the 15 sword intentions, forming a sword vortex around him, constantly blasting the frozen soil. However, after blasting dozens of meters, Yang Xiaoshan couldn't blast it anymore, so he had to let Dingyuli take him underground. After going down hundreds of meters, Yang Xiaoshan finally came to the underground space. The underground space in front of him was full of sword energy. These sword energy covered the sky and the earth, and in the sword energy, there were huge ice and snow swords. There were hundreds of these ice and snow giant swords. These ice and snow giant swords were not sword energy, but the innate sword spirits born from the sword formation. These innate sword spirits condensed and flew to form a domain space, which was the sword domain. And above the sword domain, a giant ice and snow dragon was flying. This giant ice and snow dragon was not something else, but a formation spirit. Looking at the big dragon sword formation in front of him, Yang Xiaoshan was very surprised. He didn't expect that this big dragon sword formation not only gave birth to the sword domain, but also gave birth to the formation spirit. Although the giant ice and snow dragon in front of him was not a dark dragon, it also possessed the power of the dragon's origin. After his black dragon martial spirit devoured it, it could also be greatly improved. Under the protection of Master Ding, Yang Xiaoshan walked into the dragon sword formation. Chapter 798 The First Sword Domain. After he became the Emperor of Heaven, in these years, Master Ding used the resources of the treasure houses of Heaven, Bright Continent and Dark Continent to absorb countless natural treasures. His cultivation recovered very quickly. With Master Ding's current strength, he was fully capable of dealing with the dragon sword formation in front of him. As soon as Yang Xiaoshan stepped into the dragon sword formation, the infinite sword energy in the formation seemed to have found an outlet and bombarded him. The infinite sword energy bombarded the light shield on Yang Xiaoshan, and the sword energy exploded. The power of destroying the world swept across the world. Under the protection of Master Ding, he walked step by step towards the giant ice and snow dragon of the formation. The giant ice and snow dragon roared wildly to the sky, and the dragon roar shook the world. Under its control, the endless ice sword energy bombarded Yang Xiaoshan. Even though Yang Xiaoshan was protected by Master Ding, the light shield was also shaken by the bombardment. The ice energy of the dragon sword formation was extremely strong, thousands of times stronger than the extremely cold ice energy outside. After a fierce bombardment, the light shield was also covered with layers of ice energy. Soon the space around Yang Xiaoshan was completely frozen. However, with a golden light from Master Ding, all the surrounding ice energy was dispersed. The ice energy turned into ice swords all over the sky, which hit the ice dragon one by one, and the ice dragon was blown away. The ice dragon was blown away, and fine sword holes appeared on its body. If it were an ordinary ice dragon beast, it would have died long ago after being hit by this blow, but the ice dragon seemed to be fine. It broke through the air and stood in the air, roaring to the sky. In the void of the formation, endless cold dragon energy poured into its body. Its whole body was surging with light, and the sword holes on its body were constantly healing. The dragon wings behind it stretched out, and with a wave of the wings, the cold energy suddenly roared out, and the ice energy in the sky turned into ice swords and blasted towards Yang Xiaoshan again. However, no matter how it drove the power of the formation to attack Yang Xiaoshan, it could not break through the light shield of Lord Ding. Lord Ding swallowed a mouthful of the primordial heavenly tribulation thunder water, broke through the air, and turned into a giant golden flame cauldron that supported the sky. Suddenly, with the momentum of a meteor bombardment, it directly hit the ice and snow dragon. Boom. The ice and snow dragon was blasted into the ground of the formation. The ground of the formation exploded. The ground cracked. Countless sword ki were blasted into nothingness. The icy air of the formation was emptied. The golden flame giant cauldron transformed by Lord Ding was like a chaotic mountain, pressing down the ice and snow dragon. Seeing this, Yang Xiaoshan no longer hesitated, and immediately summoned the golden flame dark dragon, and began to devour the formation spirit ice and snow dragon. The golden flame dark dragon coiled behind Yang Xiaoshan, like a golden flame dark ancient mountain, opened its huge dragon mouth, and an astonishing devouring force enveloped the ice and snow dragon. The ice and snow dragon struggled frantically, roaring endlessly, and amazing power surged out of its body. Affected by the power of the ice dragon, the icy aura of the entire formation was violent, like a huge wave, constantly bombarding Yang Xiaoshan. However, under the protection of Ding Yi's light shield, no matter how violent the icy aura of the formation was, it could not blast open the light shield. Under the suction of Yang Xiaoshan's golden flame dark dragon's devouring power, the ice and snow dragon slowly flew towards the golden flame dark dragon. The ice and snow dragon struggled even more frantically, raising the monstrous ice sword of the formation, bombarding Yang Xiaoshan and Ding Yi. There were continuous loud explosions. However, the ice and snow dragon was struggling to death, and even if all the power of the formation was raised, it would not work at all. The ice and snow dragon kept approaching the golden flame dark dragon's martial spirit. In the end, it turned into a ball of ice and snow dragon energy and flew into the mouth of the golden flame dark dragon. After the golden flame dark dragon spirit devoured the ice and snow dragon formation spirit, the whole body was filled with light, the dark chill surged, and the boundless darkness submerged the formation. Yang Xiaoshan immediately felt the changes in his black dragon spirit. After taking back the black dragon spirit, Yang Xiaoshan looked at the sword realm within the formation. Although they were far apart, he could still feel the space within the sword realm, and the power of the sword was surging. Yang Xiaoshan walked towards the sword realm. As he approached the sword realm, the invisible sword power of the sword realm blasted towards him. Wherever the sword power passed, the sword energy in the formation boiled. Boom. The light shield around Yang Xiaoshan was blasted with a loud bang. It was like a giant tripod being struck. The terrifying power swept over. Yang Xiaoshan looked at the sword realm step by step. To comprehend the sword realm, one can only enter the space within the sword realm, fully comprehend the sword power within the sword realm, and then integrate all its sword power. Thus, the sword power of the sword realm was born. Therefore, to comprehend the sword power of the sword realm, one must first withstand the sword power of the sword realm. After enduring countless bombardments of the sword power of the sword realm, Yang Xiaoshan finally came to the outside of the space of the sword realm, and then blasted open the wall of space, and entered the sword realm. After entering the sword realm, the sword power inside was like an endless ocean, endless, drowning Yang Xiaoshan. It was the first time that Yang Xiaoshan felt such a surging sword power. After arriving at the center of the sword realm, he sat down cross-legged, and the whole person wandered in the ocean of sword power. Yang Xiaoshan concentrated his mind, and began to feel the sword power in the sword realm. As Yang Xiaoshan comprehended, the sword power permeated his body, and the sword power of heaven and earth began to appear around his body. At the beginning, the sword power of heaven and earth could never be integrated into the sword power of the sword realm, but as time passed, the sword power of heaven and earth began to integrate into the sword power of the sword realm. After the sword power of heaven and earth was integrated into the sword realm, it gradually disappeared between heaven and earth. Others could no longer sense the existence of the heaven and earth sword intent, but Yang Xiaoshan could still sense that the heaven and earth sword intent was still there. As time passed, the heaven and earth sword intent became stronger and stronger, like a seedling, thriving in the sword domain, and eventually growing into a towering tree. The heaven and earth sword intent was like a towering tree, infinitely extending, deeply rooted in the sword domain, and constantly devouring the sword power in the sword domain. As it devoured, the heaven and earth sword intent became brighter and brighter. The surging sword power filled the entire formation space. Several months passed. Finally, the heaven and earth sword intent completely devoured and integrated the sword power in the sword domain. The entire heaven and earth sword intent began to grow continuously. As the heaven and earth sword intent grew, an inner space appeared inside it. It was the sword domain space. Seeing the heaven and earth sword intent giving birth to the sword domain, Yang Xiaoshan was delighted. His first sword intent finally successfully cultivated the sword domain. Once the sword domain is successfully cultivated, then his heaven and earth sword intent power will be more than 10 times stronger than before. After the heaven and earth sword intent cultivated the sword domain, it continued to grow. 10 meters, 100 meters, 200 meters. Finally, it reached a radius of 10 miles. Generally, the sword intent cultivated the sword domain, but the sword domain only covered a radius of about 100 meters, while the sword domain of Yang Xiaoshan's heaven and earth sword intent fully covered a radius of 10 miles. Yang Xiaoshan looked at the hundreds of ice and snow giant swords, and with one hand, he collected the hundreds of ice and snow giant swords in 8 sword spirits in his hand, then sealed them, and put them into the Jade Dragon Heavenly Cauldron. These innate sword spirits are no longer useful to him now, but in the future, when he arranges the sword formation, he can integrate them into the sword formation to enhance the power of the sword formation. Chapter 799 Cunning Cave. After collecting these innate sword spirits, Yang Xiaoshan studied the Great Dragon Sword formation for several days, before coming out of the formation. Although he had only been in the Great Dragon Sword formation for a few months, looking at the sword ice field in front of him, Yang Xiaoshan felt as if he was in another world. Yang Xiaoshan continued to fly deeper into the sword ice field. He activated the 17 heavenly emperor seals between his eyebrows and avoided the sword formations under the ice field one by one. However, as he continued to fly forward, the sword power of Cunning sword ancestor became stronger and stronger. Yang Xiaoshan had no choice but to expand the heaven and earth sword field. Under the power of the sword field, the sword power of Cunning sword ancestor was greatly weakened, and Yang Xiaoshan's whole body pressure was greatly reduced. Uncle Ding, is there any way to sense the location of the great dragon treasure? Yang Xiaoshan asked Uncle Ding. The sword ice field was vast and boundless. Even if he had the 17 heavenly emperor seals to sense it, it would still be difficult to find the great dragon treasure. Searching will consume a lot of spiritual consciousness. I can only help you search the surrounding space within a radius of 10,000 miles for a mouthful of Hunio and Xianji thunder water. In addition, if there is Hunio and Xianji thunder water in the cave of the great dragon treasure and the boy Kanran, we will each have half. Grandpa Ding said. Okay. Yang Xiaoshan responded immediately. He also knew that Grandpa Ding urgently needed Hunio and Xianji thunder water to restore his strength. In recent years, he gave a lot of Hunio and Xianji thunder water to Grandpa Ding, except for resurrecting the Hangmeng divine tree and swallowing a part of it for cultivation. Grandpa Ding swallowed a mouthful of Hunio and Xianji thunder water, broke through the air, and the golden light on his body rose, like an invisible golden wave, constantly spreading around the world. After a long time, Grandpa Ding landed. How is it? Yang Xiaoshan asked. Grandpa Ding shook his head, not within a radius of 10,000 miles. Yang Xiaoshan's heart sank, and then he and Grandpa Ding came to the outside of the radius of 10,000 miles. He gritted his teeth and gave Grandpa Ding another mouthful of Hunio and Xianji thunder water. After Master Ding swallowed the Hunio and heavenly tribulation thunder water, his whole body glowed brightly, and the golden light circle spread around the world again. After a long time, Master Ding landed. Before Yang Xiaoshan asked, Master Ding shook his head. Yang Xiaoshan sweated. He really didn't have much Hunio and heavenly tribulation thunder water now. If he had 2 more times, he would go bankrupt. However, the Great Dragon God sect was the supreme sword sect in the ancient times of the Kanglan continent. At its peak, its strength was even stronger than the Wangxiang Palace. Its treasures are absolutely amazing. Thinking of this, Yang Xiaoshan came to the outside of the worldly radius and gave Master Ding another mouthful of Hunio and heavenly tribulation thunder water. Master Ding flew up again, and the golden light circle on his body continued to spread. After a long time, he landed, still shaking his head. Yang Xiaoshan's heart skipped a beat. He looked at the last mouthful of Hunio and heavenly tribulation thunder water and decided to let Master Ding search for it one last time. If he still couldn't find it the last time, he could only search slowly again. So, when they arrived at a distance of 10,000 miles, Yang Xiaoshan gave the last of his Hunio and heavenly tribulation thunder water to Uncle Ding. Uncle Ding flew up again. Yang Xiaoshan stared at Uncle Ding closely. After a moment, Uncle Ding suddenly said, southeast direction. Yang Xiaoshan was startled, and his face was overjoyed. He took Uncle Ding and flew to the southeast at a high speed. Soon, they came to the sky above a sea of ice. The ice air coming out of the sea of ice in front of them was actually black, and in the black, there was a corrosive force that made people palpitate. This is the black corpse cold air. Yang Xiaoshan's face was solemn. The black corpse cold air, a kind of cold and poisonous air, is the most yin and poisonous thing in the world. Yang Xiaoshan did not dare to be careless. He pushed the sun god armor to the extreme. When he was about to enter the black corpse ice sea, suddenly, a group of masters flew over from a distance. It was the dragon masters who had entered the sword ice field to find the big dragon sword formation, the big dragon treasure and the Cunning sword ancestor cave. However, they did not find the great dragon sword formation, but were trapped by the dark dragon formation of the sword ice field for several months. After several months, they joined forces and finally got out of the trap. The young man in the lead was wearing a mysterious sword armor, and the sword energy of the sword armor was flowing. Suddenly, the light of the other sword armor surged, and the young man sensed the pull of the sword armor's power, and looked at the ice sea where Yang Xiaoshan was. Sun God Flame. What kind of god armor is that? The young man and the dragon clan masters behind him saw the sun god armor on Yang Zai Ocean from afar and were shocked. As members of the ancient golden dragon clan, they certainly knew that the sun god flame was the most powerful god flame in the world. Quick! The young man's eyes were burning, and he rushed towards Yang Zai Ocean frantically. The dragon clan masters behind him also flew towards Yang Zai Ocean at a high speed. However, when the young man and the masters of the ancient golden dragon clan arrived, Yang Zai Ocean had already broken through the black corpse cold air ice sea and entered the seabed. When the young man and the masters of the golden dragon clan arrived, they saw the cold air of the black corpse and their faces changed. The cold air of the black corpse. The young man said in surprise. I didn't expect that the divine armor on the young man could even resist the cold air of the black corpse. The eyes of an ancient golden dragon clan ancestor beside the young man were even more fiery. Such a divine armor is definitely a defensive treasure. At this time, the sword armor on the young man was shining. The young man looked at the black corpse ice sea in surprise. There must be a supreme sword formation at the bottom of this ice sea. Supreme sword formation? Is it the great dragon sword formation? Or the thousand ren sword formation? The ancient golden dragon clan ancestor said in surprise. I don't know. The young man shook his head. At this point, he used all his strength to activate the power of the sword armor on his body. The sword armor violently shot out heavy sword energy, forming a sword barrier around his body. However, just as he tried to get close to the black corpse ice sea, the sword barrier around his body was instantly stained by the cold air of the black corpse and began to blacken at an alarming speed. The young man was startled and quickly retreated. Then, with the joint efforts of the masters of the ancient golden dragon clan, the black corpse cold air above was completely dispelled. This is not an ordinary black corpse cold air. The ancient golden dragon ancestor looked solemn. Ordinary black corpse cold air can never be so terrifying. They knew the power of their ancestor's sword armor. The young man's divine armor is definitely the supreme divine armor. Another ancient golden dragon ancestor said with fiery eyes. We can't get in, so we'll wait for him outside. The young man's eyes flickered. At this time, Yang Zai Ocean used all his strength to activate the sun god armor defense formation, incinerating the surrounding black corpse cold air one by one, and walked down step by step. It was dark all around, and you couldn't see your hand in front of you. After a long period of sinking, Yang Zai Ocean's eyes suddenly lit up, and the surrounding darkness disappeared. He saw a huge palace standing on the seabed in front of him. Seeing this palace, Yang Zai Ocean was surprised. What is this? Kyanran Kid's cave. Uncle Ding laughed. Sure enough, the palace in front of him is Kyanran Sword Ancestor's cave. I didn't expect that the cave of Kyanran Jianzu was actually under this black corpse ice sea. Yang Zai Ocean looked into the depths of the palace. His origin divine body had entered the second level. He could sense that there was a lot of origin energy in Kyanran Jianzu's cave. Tomorrow's fourth update. Chapter 800. It's really cool. In addition to the key of origin, there is also a lot of Hongmen key. There is even the sand of time. Yang Zai Ocean carefully unfolded the power of his soul and the power of the 17 heavenly emperor seals, avoiding the many restrictions in front of the cave one by one, and came to the front of the cave. Just as he arrived in front of the cave, suddenly, a terrifying sword energy came to Yang Zai Ocean. The horror of this sword energy instantly pierced through the defensive flame of the sun god armor. However, Yang Zai Ocean was well prepared. When the sword energy hit him, it was shattered by the protective light shield of Master Ding. Kyanran sword formation. Yang Zai Ocean looked at the palace in front of him. The Kyanran sword formation has merged with the palace in front of him, and merged with the surrounding world. Kyanran boy, this Kyanran sword formation technique is much better than it was back then. Master Ding said. Yang Zai Ocean was stunned. Master Ding knows Kyanran sword ancestor? Well, I guess so. Master Ding said. I guess so? Yang Zai Ocean was puzzled. Then, he began to study and comprehend the Kyanran sword formation in front of him. The Kyanran sword formation in front of him was extremely complicated. After studying it for several days, Yang Zai Ocean began to wave his hands and condense runes to break the Kyanran sword formation. One sword rune after another, continuously condensed and then merged into the palace in front of him. Some of the sword runes condensed by Yangtze Ocean were as big as a small mountain, some were as small as a fist, and some were even as small as a grain of rice. This is why the cunning sword formation is difficult to break. Because, in the cunning sword formation arranged by cunning sword ancestor, each sword rune was of different sizes. To break this cunning sword formation, the condensed sword rune must be the same size as the one condensed by cunning sword ancestor in the past. Not even a little difference will work. In this way, after Yangtze Ocean condensed a full 1,000 sword runes, finally, the palace in front of him was surging with light, and the cunning sword key dissipated. Seeing this, Yangtze Ocean stepped forward and pushed open the palace door. The palace door was very heavy, and with Yangtze Ocean's strong power, he could only push it open slowly. Yangtze Ocean was surprised. This pair of doors is a good thing, made of Cheyenne Hang divine iron. Uncle Ding said, when we leave, we will tear down this pair of doors and refine them into bricks. If you don't like someone, you can hit him with a brick. Yangtze Ocean smiled. After entering the palace, he came to the main hall. The 4 huge stone pillars on the main hall attracted Yangtze Ocean's attention. He saw that a divine beast was carved on each stone root. These divine beasts were all condensed by sword runes. 4-symbol sword formation. Yangtze Ocean said, the 4-symbol sword formation is one of the 10 major sword formations in Kanglan continent. Yangtze Ocean took a quick look and did not study it carefully. Instead, he walked through the front hall and went to the back. Now, the most important thing is to find the Hunio and Cheyenne Thunderwater. After passing through the front hall, there is a big lake. The big lake is blue and blue, containing amazing energy. Heavenly heavy yuan water. I didn't expect there is also heavenly heavy yuan water here. Uncle Ding looked at the blue lake in front of him and was very surprised. Although the effect of Cheyenne's Hang yuan water is not as good as Hunio and Cheyenne Lei water, it is also very useful for its recovery. After Yangtze Ocean ascended to the Heavenly Emperor, he took charge of the Heavenly Court, and there was a lot of Cheyenne's Hang yuan water in the Heavenly Court's treasury. It was also with the help of Cheyenne's Hang yuan water that Master Ding's cultivation has recovered so quickly in recent years. The Cheyenne's Hang yuan water contained in the Azure Lake in front of him is much more than the treasure house of the Heavenly Court in Zongshan continent. Master Ding said nothing, and immediately broke through the air and smashed directly into the Azure Lake. Suddenly, there was a burst of crazy inhalation. Cool. It's really cool. Master Ding even made a trembling sound of ecstasy. Yangtze Ocean had a lot of bumps all over his body and ignored this guy, bypassed the Azure Lake, and continued to walk inside. After a while, he came to a palace. The origin of the spirit, the primordial spirit, and the sand of time that he had sensed before were all in this palace. It seems that this is the small treasure house of cunning sword ancestor. The door of the treasure house was tightly closed, and there were many restrictions on it. However, Yangtze Ocean was too lazy to use the formation rune to crack it. He directly activated the 15th level of Eternal Divine Body and pressed his palms on the door. Under the assimilation of the Eternal Time power, the door restriction began to be corroded continuously, and it made a constant noise. In just half an hour, the door restriction was assimilated completely. The 15th level of Eternal Divine Body, the power of time is strong. However, it can corrode this restriction so quickly, mainly because the restriction has been corroded for a long time and its power has weakened. Yangtze Ocean pushed the door open, and when he saw the origin of the air, the primordial air, and the sand of time inside, he was very surprised. There were more than 200 origins of the air in this small palace, and there were more than 300 primordial air and sand of time. There were more than a dozen clumps of sand of time. Yangtze Ocean collected all these origins of the air, the primordial air, and the sand of time, and then looked at other natural treasures. Finally, his eyes fell on the 4 jade bottles on the jade cabinet. What he lacked most now was the Hunio and Heavenly Tribulation Thunderwater. Yangtze Ocean came to the jade bottles and began to open them one by one. The first 3 jade bottles were filled with elixirs. Although they were elixirs refined by cunning sword ancestor in the past, the quality was not high, and Yangtze Ocean was greatly disappointed. Yangtze Ocean opened the last jade bottle. Suddenly, thunder vapor was steaming, evolving into various thunder phenomena. Hunio and Heavenly Tribulation Thunderwater. Yangtze Ocean was surprised and relieved at the same time. Finally, he did not waste so much effort to find this Cunning cave mansion, otherwise the previous few gulps of Union Heavenly Tribulation Thunderwater would have been in vain. Yang Ocean looked at the full bottle of Union Heavenly Tribulation Thunderwater, about 200 gulps. Then, Yang Ocean took away the Union Heavenly Tribulation Thunderwater and the natural treasures in the hall, and then began to search other places in Cunning Cave Mansion. Cunning Sword Ancestor was unparalleled in swordsmanship, and his attainments in formations were extremely high. I wonder if there are any sword and formation secrets in the cave. Just as Yang Ocean was searching other corners of Cunning Cave, a large ship of the Chamber of Commerce flew into the sword ice field. The hull of this large ship of the Chamber of Commerce was carved with a huge blue dragon, which was lifelike. It was the first Chamber of Commerce in the Kanglang continent, the Kanglang Chamber of Commerce. Although the Lord of the Blue Dragon had left the Kanglang continent for many years, the Kanglang Chamber of Commerce was founded by the Lord of the Blue Dragon's eldest disciple 2ZHI. Even the Wangxiang Palace had to retreat in the face of the Kanglang Chamber of Commerce. At this moment, a group of people stood on the bow of the Kanglang Chamber of Commerce's spaceship, led by Liang Rong, 2ZHI's disciple. And standing next to Liang Rong was the long-lost true demon ancestor. Junior brother, Master said that this time you come with us to the sword ice field, mainly to see more. Liang Rong said to the true demon ancestor, the sword ice field is full of terrifying sword formations, you can't barge in. Upon hearing this, the true demon ancestor smiled at Liang Rong and said, okay, second senior brother. Liang Rong drove the spaceship to the depths of the sword ice field. This direction was exactly the direction of the Cunning Sword Ancestor's cave. The power of the spaceship formation surged, plowing through the heavy ice of the sword ice field, and constantly approaching Yang Ocean. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.